Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to colinslaststand.com. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode 86. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined, as always, by Chris Raygun. Chris, how are you today? Talk to me a little bit.
It's going all right.
Yeah.
Relative.
Yeah. It is all relative, isn't it?
Yeah.
About your mood and your kind of baseline, as it were. It really matters a great deal. Some people are very perky, very bubbly. Some people are very, like me, very depressed and dark.
I can't imagine being bubbly.
No, me neither. What is there to be bubbly and excited about anyway?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you so excited about? You're living? That's great. Good. So happy for you. Well, welcome all to our PlayStation podcast, our weekly PlayStation podcast, Sacred Symbols, the internet's most beloved PlayStation podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you can support us on Patreon, patreon.com/colinslaststand. for early ad-free access to our show and the ability to listen to Sacred Symbols Plus, our Patreon-exclusive episode supplement, let's say, that we do each and every week. You can go to colinslaststand.com for more information about everything, including details about merchandise. This week's Sacred Symbols Plus is actually going to be a little different, Chris, because people have been asking, can Chris talk to someone else or can Colin talk to someone else? We're sick of hearing you guys, right? And I'm like, okay, I understand. So this week, I'm going to actually interview and talk to Sophia Narwitz, who a lot of people know. She's a games journalist, but kind of like an outsider's game journalist. She's self-employed, and she actually writes the scripts for SideQuest, our YouTube show that's going to start kicking up soon. And she's transgender, and she's a really interesting chick. And so I want to have her on and just talk to her about her experience transitioning and her politics and what it's like to be in the industry and kind of be, I don't know, how do you put it? Sophia is exactly what the woke brigade would want in a games journalist, right? Mm-hmm. But she's not what they want when they actually listen to her talk. Right. And that's what's so fantastic about her. So that's going to be fun. Last week's was just a challenging me, as we already knew. You guys have a lot of problems with everything I say, so you can go listen to that as I defend myself the best I can. And then next week we'll bring Chris back into the fold and do something fun and extraordinary, I'm sure. Yeah. I don't really know what it's going to be. I'm kind of not trying to put too much into the ether about Sacred Symbols Plus, Chris, because I don't know. I still don't know when PlayStation 5 is going to be revealed, and I'm sure we'll do we'll obviously dedicate a regular show to it, but I'm sure we'll do some sort of extra blowout.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I feel like it's getting closer, for sure. I've noticed the rumor mill spinning pretty quickly.
It feels imminent, but yeah. I've been saying that for, I don't know, a while now. So don't listen to anything I'm saying because I don't really know for sure. All right, Chris, I'm going to be doing this every week up to the launch of Twin Breaker. But just a reminder, Twin Breaker, a Sacred Symbols adventure starring Chris and I, goes on sale March 24th for $9.99 on PlayStation Network. It's cross-buy between PS4 and Vita. It is a story-driven brick breaker. It's going to be great. I really am excited for you guys and gals, of course, to be able to play it and enjoy it. A lot of people are really worried about the physical edition of the game. It's very limited, as everyone knows, through our friends at East Asia Soft. Right now, we're only doing 1,000 of each, PS4 and Vita, and I'm sure those are going to go pretty quick. They're not just going to spontaneously go on sale. I know a lot of people are worried about that. I will let everyone know, and East Asia Soft will let people know when they're going to go on sale, and we'll even the playing field in that way the best we can. So do not fear. Please do not fear. And of course, other people are asking if there'll be other merch available, posters and the like. We're working on that. So we'll let you know more soon. This isn't really newsworthy, but I guess I wanted to let everyone know that the PlayStation forums that have been running for a really long time are shutting down. The official PlayStation forums. So as of February 27th, you will no longer be able to post on them. And it's unclear if they'll even be in some sort of way cataloged for posterity. I know a lot of people have been using these since the PS1 and PS2 days, but they obviously really gained traction during the PSN, PS3, and PSP days. So they're going to be gone. And if you read the post on PlayStation forums, they point you towards social media, in particular Twitter and Instagram. So goodbye, PlayStation forums.
Oh, well.
All right, Chris, let's get into some corrections and some chicanery.
Oh, good.
Before we get into the show. Let's have a high energy show today. And
yeah,
I want to start with Yeah, definitely. I want to start with Brandon Bishop. He wrote it in just with a correction. Now, I feel like everyone felt the need to tell me this, but we'll go with Brandon. Hey, Colin and Chris, just letting Colin know that the random Brad Pitt quote he dropped on last week's episode was from the movie Troy. So he's talking about when I said, take it, it's yours. Well, that was from, I knew it was from something with Brad Pitt, but it ended up being the film Troy. And Brandon says, I worked at a dumpy movie theater when it was playing, and its ending credits music is forever ingrained in the soft tissue of my brain, along with Shrek 2, You Got Served, and a number of other notable early 2000s movies, and is probably the source of my manic depression and deep passion to systematically destroy any semblance of normality in my life. So that went to a dark and candid place.
As it often does here, I feel like.
Indeed. But I feel like we nonetheless appreciate that correction. And yeah, a lot of people were all over it with the Brad Pitt quote. Because I remember people making fun of it, Chris. I don't know if you remember people making fun of it and saying, putting something in front of it, something inappropriate.
Oh, right.
And then saying, take it, it's yours. And that's how I remember.
I've straight up never heard this. I've never seen that movie, though.
I've never seen the movie either. It was just one of those annoying trailers that was always on. I think the movie came out, I don't know, 2004, something like that, 2003.
That sounds around, that sounds about accurate if this guy's talking about Shrek 2.
Yeah, I've never seen Shrek. Never seen any of the Shrek films.
Really? Shrek and Shrek 2, I think, are actually kind of good.
What is he? What is Shrek doing?
Shrek is he's like an ogre, and it's like this kind of satire of fairy tale lands and shit. Like, I don't even really know how to describe it. It's like strangely adult for a kid's film.
Oh.
It feels like a weirdly adult satire.
Okay.
Those first two movies are pretty unironically like super enjoyable.
Yeah, I don't know why I was just never interested in them. I don't often go and see animated films.
Yeah.
I think I've only seen the first Toy Story. I don't think I've even seen what are there, 4 of them now? 3 of them? I've never seen those particular films. Just the first one.
That's fair. The first one has aged like fine milk.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Shout out to Land Before Time, though, of course.
Oh, classic.
The great animated film that made me, between that and Bambi as a kid, I'm surprised that I got out of my childhood alive.
There's 13 Land Before Times?
Yeah, it's absurd. I don't know how that's even possible. Is it the same? Are the same dinosaurs in all of them? Are they adult dinosaurs now?
Oh, I don't know. I feel like it might be like a Home Alone situation. Where they eventually just kind of replace them with arbitrary different dinosaurs, even though they're animated and wouldn't need to be replaced.
I feel like I never saw Home Alone 3 because of that. Because I love Home Alone and Home Alone 2. But I would love for them to bring Macaulay Culkin back and his child, and he forgets his kid and so on, and it's like a generational thing.
Oh, that could be funny.
That would be fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun.
They should superimpose adult Macaulay Culkin over whatever kid was in Home Alone and re-release that movie.
Yeah, they could do like a deep fake.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be fun.
With Macaulay. They could actually do that now, which is actually wild. I actually hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I just Home Alone 3 just because I don't think John Hughes wrote it either. I could be wrong about that.
No, you're right.
And I always loved John Hughes that he even did Home Alone because he's obviously so well known for his cult 80s movies.
Yeah.
Like Breakfast Club and I think Pretty in Pink and stuff like that. So it was always funny to me when I was older and I realized it was the same dude. And he's deceased, unfortunately. So
yeah,
he ain't never coming back. So he has no, And by the way, Macaulay Culkin claims Michael Jackson never touched him inappropriately, which is very interesting. Very interesting indeed. All right. Danny Garcia wrote in. This is going to infuriate you, Chris, because it really infuriated me. Says, hey, Heartless boys, you discussed the Kingdom Hearts 3 all-in-one package last week and poked fun at the name 358 over 2 days. It's actually pronounced 358 over 2 days, and it's named that because the game is based around Roxas's and Zion's, or Xion, he says Xion's, it's Xion, 358 days in the Organization 13. During the course of the game, Xion befriends Roxas, but in the end is used by Xemnas to become the perfect replica of Sora.
Oh my god.
Do not fret, friends, because Roxas ultimately defeats Xion and allows her to merge back with Sora, thus wiping all memory of her existence. Just needed to set the record straight. Danny?
The record is the least straight it's ever been.
Yeah, Danny, the record's never been more nebulous than it is right this moment. I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I don't know why you would name the game that still. It's still a weird name.
I feel like I knew more about Kingdom Hearts before I read this.
Yeah. I can understand that. It's very disturbing. The whole thing is really quite unnecessary, if I'm going to be honest with you. But to each his own. Gustavo Ochoa wrote in and said, hey, CNC, just a quick correction regarding last week's talk on Activision's beloved IP and possible revivals. Tony Hawk and Activision's licensing agreement expired in 2015 and therefore can no longer do anything with the IP. As a matter of fact, the reason Tony Hawk Pro Skater 5 was so bad was because they were trying to cash in one last time before the license expired. Hence the complete garbage that was released as their final installment, Keep Tuesdays Great. Thank you, Gustavo. So you're half right here. I was actually looking into this. You're right, because I remember that about Pro Skater 5 being horrible because they rushed it to get into that window. But I was reading a little bit about the, I guess, after Activision days of Tony Hawk and the Pro Skater, and Activision actually does retain the IP rights and the republishing rights of Pro Skater. It's unclear if they can use Tony Hawk or the others, although they might be able to because the pre-digital era licensing agreements are so weird that it's really unclear one way or the other. So you're right. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater cannot continue under Activision, but they can continue Pro Skater. And it seems like they probably could publish the older games. Whether or not they would have to heavily edit them or not remains to be seen. But Tony Hawk does have a new game. That's what was it called? I actually looked it up here. Where can I find it? Tony Hawk Skate Jam. Yeah. So that happened without Tony Hawk. Or I'm sorry, without Pro Skater and without Activision. But it's only on iOS and Android, so no one wants to play it.
Right.
Okay. So thank you for your letter. Appreciate you. Jose Horich wrote in and said, hey, gentlemen, it looks like against all odds, the Sonic the Hedgehog movie is good. After the success of Detective Pikachu and the presumed success of Sonic the Hedgehog, do you think that perhaps the idea of a good movie adaptation of video games is feasible? After all, Chris, I know you went and saw it, so talk to me a little bit about Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie.
Yeah, so, okay, listen to me. Listen right now. I understand why people think this movie is good, because it's not horrendous, but it's still not good. It's a very cliched, boring movie. I was bored in a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, which I should have been consistently floored with what I was seeing. I feel like is really what should have been. But it really is just like this Alvin and the Chipmunks ass kind of like, oh, hey, it's Sonic, but he's with live action people. How weird. And it just feels very bizarre, and it's not good. It's not good. It's mediocre if anything. It's like a 4 out of 10 maybe.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, okay.
But I guess of the watchable video game adaptations, I guess it is one of the more watchable ones. I didn't even really like Detective Pikachu either that much, honestly. I don't know, man. I think the bar is so low for video game movies that even just not being painful to watch is enough for something to be like, or for people to be like, hey, we're finally there. We finally got our Spider-Man. And it's like, no, we really don't.
That's the vibe I got from it too. Now, I didn't see it. I'm not going to see it. You couldn't pay me to see Sonic the Hedgehog, the movie, but it doesn't look terrible. But like Chris is saying, I really think I was a little flummoxed by the reaction on Twitter as well, on social media. It did make $100 million over the weekend globally, which is almost a guarantee that it's going to get a sequel. But I don't know. It looks fine. I'm glad they redesigned Sonic. I think that the redesigned Sonic looks pretty good. I'm interested in, who is it, Dr. Robotnik or whatever? I said Drew Carey. Jim Carrey, his performance is supposed to be pretty good. He's a great actor. I like him. So
yeah, he was fine. Everything was just fine. It was a fine thing, but like I forgot. There were parts that I liked that I actually laughed at, and then I left the theater and forgot about, like, I forgot what I laughed at on the way home. Like, it's that much of an unimpressionable movie, which, again, I hate to be this asshole, but feel like it would have been a lot more interesting with the horrible design.
Yeah, a little more campy, perhaps, a little more weird, a little weirder.
I feel like it would have at least been more of a train wreck for sure, because there are scenes that like are supposed to be endearing that you could tell with that old animation would look just clearly horrifying. And I feel like I would have definitely preferred to see that instead of just something that looked like it was just constantly in the background. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess all the extra hard work and the crunch that the people had to do, the animators had to do to fix it, I guess it worked out for them. But
yeah,
it's like the exact opposite of Cats, which I believe you also saw, right?
Yeah.
So
I did.
it's like a little bit of a contrast between, I guess, what is good and what is bad in terms of CG. But I don't know. To each his own. I think Sonic is dumb. So I just can't bring myself to go see it. But I'm glad that other people enjoy it. I didn't see Detective Pikachu either, just because I found it quite unsettling, if I'm going to be honest with you. Just the entire idea. I didn't like it. Didn't like it at all.
Yeah. One thing I do appreciate about that movie is that there is a Sonic cameo. You know what Sonic is, right?
Yeah, like the deformed meme version of Sonic. Yeah,
he's in there, and that got a good chuckle out of me.
Oh, that's good. That's great. I love that. You know, Sega has been really good about, like I always talk about the Sonic the Hedgehog Twitter account, which is horrifying because I never want to make fun of Sonic because then it might come at me and just make an example out of me. But so they've been really good about a lot of the stuff with Sonic and embracing the Sonic culture, whatever that might be. But it reminds me a few weeks ago when I think it was you that tweeted out the video of the cosplayers at some festival in the bathroom singing some Sonic song. I'm just like, got to drop a tactical nuclear weapon on that place. You know, just let's not even deal with this anymore.
Yeah.
But my dream didn't come true. Chris, Matt Sloan wrote in, this is a reasonable question. He says, hi, Colin and Chris. Firstly, I find it really irritating all the different names people call you at the start of their questions. Why can't everyone just address you as Colin and Chris? I don't know. I have no idea why not.
Yeah.
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Sometimes they're good ones.
Yeah. Call me whatever you want. By the way, if you hear that, again, you hear me slapping my leg while I'm talking, I am wearing shorts today.
Oh,
so
congrats.
I'm not naked, not in underwear. But if you hear that kind of slapping.
Progress is progress, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, by the way, two things. Totally unrelated to anything we've been talking about. I saw the movie Parasite this weekend. I rented it. And it's the South Korean film. I think it won Best Picture, the Academy Awards.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's Best Picture quality, but it was good. It was a good movie. I liked it.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
I haven't gotten around to seeing it yet. I feel like I saw most of the other ones. I saw Jojo Rabbit and I saw Joker, but I feel like those are the only movies I saw this year, honestly. Like I can't remember what else I saw. Yeah,
I saw Joker, which I liked a lot. I thought Joker was definitely better than Parasite. I can't help but wonder how Parasite won. I'll be curious to see what you think of it when you watch it. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it just because that director, he made Snowpiercer, and Snowpiercer is just phenomenal. I don't know if you've ever seen Snowpiercer.
No, I've never seen it.
You should absolutely watch Snowpiercer. It's stupid good.
I'll check it out.
And it's got like this ridiculous guys like Tilda Swinton and Chris Evans, and it's like, what is this?
Oh, it's like a Western movie?
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess it's the same director. But it is like I guess American, and the whole thing takes place on this insane train, and it's really, really cool.
Cool, I'll check it out. I heard that his hometown in South Korea is going to build a statue of him, so that's pretty interesting.
That's kind of
awesome. He's gonna have like a Stalin statue, just like one of those really weird cult of personality statues. That's cool though. I'll check it out. Congratulations to him. I just was surprised that it won because I didn't think it was. Usually when you see a Best Picture candidate or whatever, you're like, wow, yeah, this is really something special. I don't know if it was something special, but it was good. It was good.
I think a lot of it, especially with it being a foreign film, I think a lot of I was talking about this with my roommates, where like if something is like natively in a different language, it's kind of hard to tell whether the acting is good.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you're not familiar with how that culture communicates, and you're not familiar with like how convincing it would be. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. My Korean is very rusty.
Yeah.
So I had to read the subtitles. But it's available to rent on Amazon Prime if anyone's interested. That's where I got it.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was $3.99, I think. So worth it.
Yeah, I'll get around to it.
And the other thing I wanted to say is last night I went out with some friends and saw the Lumineers in concert. And they were really good.
I enjoyed it. Did they do Ho Hey?
Yes, they did. They did. I didn't really know. I only knew like a couple of the singles, like Ophelia and some of these other songs. They put on a good show. Gotta be honest with you. I saw them at the University of Virginia, and I had no expectations because I'm not really familiar with their catalog, and I enjoyed it. So I just wanted to throw that out there. Very, very good performers, live performers. If you're into the folk rock, of course.
I've never been to a bad concert. I don't think.
I don't know if I've been to a bad concert. I probably have been to a bad concert. I feel like
concerts are just inherently kind of fun.
Yeah, they are. They are fun. You have a little drink. You have a little pot, maybe. Not this time because I'm in Virginia. Can't buy the pot anymore here. But yeah, I enjoyed. I just really like live music, and I like the company that I was with, so that's why I wanted to go.
For sure.
If you're going to invite me to a show, I'll be like, yeah, I'll go. So this summer, the trade-off though is this summer 311 and Incubus are playing, so I'll drag them to that, and we'll see how thankful they are. We'll see how thankful they are when we're done.
I'm gonna see Devin Townsend soon, and then I'm gonna see I think Green Day, Weezer, and that other band that they're doing. They're doing like some tour.
That's going to be exciting.
Yeah,
they always
put on a pretty good show from what I've seen. They usually like bring people up to play, which would be pretty sick.
I feel like I saw Green Day in 2004 during the American Idiot tour, and that wasn't a great tour to see them on because that was like during their weird transformation from their old like punk rock days to their kind of like rock opera stuff.
That was like theatric.
Yeah, it was cool. They played a few songs. Nimrod's always been my favorite Green Day record, and they did play like King for a Day and a couple of other things, but they played like all of American Idiot, and I'm like, I don't need to hear this record, but they were really good. I've always wanted to see Weezer, but I really honestly only love the Blue album.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
I don't know if they really pay a lot of attention to that record or not. I'd love to just see that record played. Yeah, and that would be it.
For sure.
That'd be it. All right, what the fuck were we talking about? Okay, here we are. Danon and Zeroed In said, after hearing the horrible story about stealing a Vita off a child last week, can we change the common idiom like taking candy from a baby to like taking a Vita off a nephew? That is all. Yeah, we can do that. Sure, we can do that. I allow that. Thank you, Dano.
That's good. That's a good resubmission.
All right, let me see here. This is a disturbing one. Trent Miller wrote in, said, hello, death-defying Colin and stranded Chris. He says, wait for Chris, but I'm not going to do it. So my brother and sister-in-law recently had a baby, and Death Stranding has been on my mind. As I was looking at the beautiful child, the idea crept into my head of putting her into a jar and carrying her around like Sam Porter Bridges. This is probably wrong of me, right? I mean, I would make sure there would be holes in it so she could still breathe. I don't have any kids of my own, so I'm not entirely sure of it all. But Colin, have you ever tried this with Chris yet? How did it go? Thanks, guys, and continue to make Tuesdays. We'll make Tuesdays. Thank you so much, Trent. That would be fun, Chris, for me to put you in a little, attach you to my chest.
Yeah.
In a glass jar, and you can direct me towards...
That would be awesome fan art if somebody wants to draw that.
Yeah, draw that
hysterical.
Up. Yeah, please draw that up. That would be awesome. It would be funny cosplay too. I don't know how we would do it. Yeah, but we could do it. I would just like to carry you around, and like they have the like baby satchels where the kid sits in front of the mom or dad.
Oh yeah, like the little shopping cart seats, but on a person.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I would love to put you in one of those. That would be fun. I couldn't really get down with that. I would enjoy that very much.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would, but
probably not.
Finally, Caleb Greer wrote in and said, hello, Colin and Chris. William in the community feed here on Patreon. So he's talking about on Patreon, there's a community feed where all the patrons talk to each other. He says, makes a fantastic point. Why would we all buy Twin Breaker when we could just make it ourselves in dreams? This 2810 phenomenon, according to critics. Yeah, I don't know about that. We'll talk about dreams later. But he says, in fact, why don't we all just get together and make Cyberpunk so we don't have to waste our money? Why don't we just create the next console in dreams so they can all simulate all our new PS5 and Xbox Series X games from the comfort of our PS4? Thank you for your time. Caleb, I can't stop you guys from making Twin Breaker in dreams, but it'll require one of you to buy it first so you know what you're copying. Yeah. And then you can go from there. Okay? We'll talk about dreams more in detail a little later on, but fair enough point. If you want to make Twin Breaker, you want to make Twin Breaker in dreams, one of the 10 people out there that owns it, you have fun with it. All right? You have fun with that. Chris, let's talk about what we're playing. It says here that you're playing Hellblade.
Yeah, I'm still playing Hellblade, slowly working my way through it. I've been working a lot, which is also good, but like Hellblade is still, I don't know, man. The more time I spend with it, the more I really, 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 really like it. It's frustrating to me that I didn't play this sooner. It really feels like one of those.
I noted on Twitter that you didn't bring this up, and I think you fear bringing it up because we're a PlayStation podcast, but it said that you're also playing, or you are playing Fable 2. Is this true?
Yeah, every once in a while, I'll boot up some Fable 2. It's such a fucking easy game to play. It's like an RPG, but you don't have to even... You could listen to a podcast and still understand what's happening. It's very weird. It's a very weird, simple kind of game that lets you go around and slash Cockney Brits with swords and magic.
Excellent. Fuck them. You know what I'm saying?
It's a really charming game. It is old, and I wonder if Microsoft even really cares about the Fable IP anymore. That's like a whole different conversation, but that's Fable 2 specifically is a game that I think is genuinely super, super good and super, super charming, and it's a shame that it isn't available outside of the Xbox 360, really.
Is it backwards compatible? It's not backwards compatible on the Xbox? Oh,
Yeah. That's how I've been playing it. But
okay. Yeah, I don't know. That's a Lionhead game. Obviously, they don't exist anymore. Peter Molyneux, of course. And I think that Microsoft probably does care about Fable because they canceled Fable Legends, and you'd think that they wouldn't have done that if they didn't care about the quality of the game. But maybe I'm reading that wrong. Maybe they canceled it because no one cares about Fable. That's also possible. Because I feel like I wasn't a Fable guy, obviously, but I feel like people just constantly complained about it all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
Fable 1 was really janky, and Fable 3 was probably one of the worst things I've ever played. It's a weird franchise because it's like this one middle thing is like actually like kind of just a gem. And it's I don't know. It sucks. It sucks that it's stranded.
Yeah, it probably always will be. Well, maybe until Xbox Game Pass comes to PlayStation 5, which, hey, anything is possible.
Yeah.
Anything is possible.
It's a whole new world. You're still playing Dragon Quest 11, I see. We're what is it? Almost all the way done through February.
Yeah, I know. I'm really fucked right now with my schedule here, especially because Vanquish comes out this week. So this has to end one way or the other. And all right, so I'm going to spoil Dragon Quest 11 again. So if you guys don't want Dragon Quest 11 spoilers, just go a couple minutes ahead. But all right, so I beat Dragon Quest 11, but it's not really over when you beat it. So here's what happens. I explained to you that Act 1 is the game, and then there's an Act 2 where you basically play the whole game again and reestablish your party and go to all the places you've already been. And then Act 3, which is this optional act to get the real ending. And I shit you not, when this happened, I was like, you got to be fucking kidding me. So at the end of Act 2, you bring peace to the world. You destroy the monster, the antagonist, and peace comes back to the world, and it's sunny again, and everyone's excited, and prosperity has returned. But there has been a lot of suffering in the world, okay? And so they find this orb, the party, if you go look for it, and this is all optional. You can do this after the credits. They find this orb that, if slashed and destroyed, destroys the timeline and goes back to before the bad guy was beaten.
Oh my God.
So so everything's fine in the world now. Everything is totally fine. Everyone's happy. But in order to mitigate the suffering that had already existed, the party decides to risk all of that and go back in time and undo all of the progress they made in order to kill the bad guy before all the bad shit starts happening. So you go back basically to Act 1. And then you have to like so you're actually like seeing things you've already done again. It even lets you skip these cutscenes and stuff like that. And at this point, I'm playing the game out of spite because I just need to know how this is all going to end. It's getting so insane. How many times? So I'm 70 something hours into this game. How many times are you going to make me do the same thing over and over again? We're going to find out because I'm going to do it. I'm going deep. I'm going all the way.
That is insane. That would turn me off so quickly.
It really is turning me off. I'm just like, I don't understand. Now, it is optional, so I do give that to them. But when you know it's hanging there, the credits rolled, all of that kind of stuff. But when you know it's hanging there, you're like, oh, I didn't really beat the game because there's more to be done. And then they just, like, everything is fine in the world now, but they just undo it all in order to go back before the suffering began so that no one has suffered. Maybe. So, fucking annoying. Just absolutely obnoxious. And I don't know how much more I can take, but I've come this far. I'm telling you, I got to keep going. Got to keep going. But this game's ruining my life. Actually, I was looking at it, though. I haven't been playing it for that long. I started the game on January 12th. So it's been a little bit over a month. It's not like, that's pretty long, but it's not that long.
Yeah.
It's not like, I feel like I've been playing it for years, to be perfectly honest with you. So I don't know if that's a good sign or not. But Corey Striper wrote into us, Chris. He says, hey, CNC. I just wanted to let Colin know that he is playing Dragon Quest XI incorrectly. It is not meant to be played in long durations of time, and it is more of a midnight snack to relax you and ease you into bed. That's how the Japanese audience sees it, at least. And it's immensely popular in Japan, too, to be sure. They play it on weeknights for half an hour or an hour after taking a bath and before going to bed. That's why it's so long. It's meant to be played in small chunks. Dragon Quest games are bedtime stories, but be sure to play it however you'd like. Thank you and hope you're doing well in Virginia. Now, Corey, I got to be honest with you. And Chris, I want to bring you in on this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I've played every Dragon Warrior game, or it used to be called Dragon Warrior, Dragon Quest game. I've never once heard anyone talk about that.
Yeah.
Ever. So I think you might be making that up. And I don't know for sure. You don't have to write back in. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. But all of the Dragon Quest games in the last, let's say, 15 years are too long. And Dragon Quest 1 through 6 are not too long. They would all be long over. I mean, you could beat Dragon Quest 1 in 10 hours. It's not, so I kind of feel like you're just making this up. I'm a huge Dragon Quest fan. I've been a huge Dragon Quest fan, Corey, maybe even since before you were born, young man. And I don't like you talking to me like this. I don't like you. Because if what he's saying is true, you play in an hour or half an hour chunk. So you play the game for 5 months. That's what you're supposed to do with Dragon Quest 11. It's nuts.
Yeah, that's insane. That's too much time. Like, if anything, a game that's meant to be played in shorter bursts would be shorter. You know what I mean? Just because you know the game would last longer, and there would be no reason to arbitrarily extend it past its natural resolution.
I completely agree with you. So I don't know, Corey. I feel like you're just making everything up that you're saying, and I just wanted to let you know that. But maybe you're right. Maybe there's some because I know how big Dragon Quest is in Japan. I've been to Japan, and that's where I bought a lot of my Dragon Quest merch. It's huge. I bought all sorts of cute little slimes, and I love the slime, the blue slime from Dragon Quest. It's so cute. And, some other odds and ends. And so, yeah, it's huge there. It's actually so popular that there's some of the rare games that are actually really cheap to buy because they've manufactured so many of them there, whether you buy them on Famicom or Super Famicom or whatever. So, yeah, Dragon Quest is huge there. It's not so popular here. I don't know. I really want to go read the critical reception of this game because I actually don't know how it was received. I'm a huge JRPG fan, and I feel like this game is just so unnecessarily long for no reason whatsoever. But I'm seeing it through to the end. Vanquish is going to be a big distraction. That's coming out this week, but we'll talk about that when we talk about the games coming out, Chris. All of us have issues that keep us up at night, give us anxiety, or cause us pain. For instance, I often stay awake in bed thinking about a 4-mile in diameter asteroid that will wipe out all life from the Earth. Or perhaps I wish for it. Have you ever read social media? Well, either way, if I use Feel's premium CBD oil, and I sometimes do, chances are I'd concern myself less with cosmic catastrophe and find peace and comfort in times of turmoil and restlessness. CBD stands for cannabidiol, an extract from the precious cannabis plant that focuses its powers not on getting stoned, but rather in subtly reducing the ill effects of anxiousness, aches, and perhaps even other A words that would give this sentence better alliteration. Feel CBD oil is easy to use. All you do is place a few drops under your tongue, and often within minutes, you'll feel the day's encumbrances wash away, allowing you to get those 8 hours of sleep, alleviate physical discomforts, and worry less about the drama and issues surrounding you. You may even forget that an asteroid is on a surefire glide path with Earth right this very second, though whether it hits soon or in a million years remains to be seen. Not even the most talented astronomers know that. But let's not be so dire. Let's be uplifting instead by reminding you that Feel's CBD oil doesn't get you high, doesn't cause hangovers, and is friendly to take even for newcomers who may be wary of using cannabis. Feels even has a hotline run by actual humans who can guide you on what to take, how much, and in what circumstances. And its monthly membership ensures that you don't run out of natural extract when you may need it most. If you want to try Feels for yourself and get 50% off your first order with free shipping, simply head to feels.com/symbols. That's feals.com/SYMBOLS and see what all the rage is about. Membership is easy to start and stop, and you can cancel anytime. Again, that's feals.com/symbols for 50% off your first order, free shipping, and most importantly, the glory of CBD oil delivered directly to your door. Let's talk about the news though, shall we?
Yeah.
Let's get into some of the news. Some big pieces of news this week.
Yeah.
This is the biggest piece of news of all, though. Be interested to see what Chris thinks of this. Number one, a new report from business publication Bloomberg indicates that Sony may be having a hard time getting a grasp on PlayStation 5's pricing due to a competitive marketplace for parts and a higher than assumed price for other components. The article notes that Sony's cost per unit on the production side is currently a staggering $450. And while tradition dictates that Sony internally prices new PlayStation hardware in February of a launch year, they aren't doing so now because they simply aren't sure what they're going to do yet. Bloomberg notes that PS4's cost of production in 2013 was $381 per unit, meaning that Sony would need to charge around $470 per PlayStation 5 console to extract the same meager profit Sony did on PS4 at $399 if they intend on even extracting profit at all. There's apparently an internal battle brewing between the powers that be at Sony, with some thinking that Sony won't be able to turn a profit and match Microsoft's assumed price point for Xbox Series X, while others think that Sony should focus on extracting a profit even if it could affect demand. Sony is apparently competing heavily for DRAM. Is that how you say that? I would assume so.
Yeah.
And flash memory with smartphone manufacturers who are using the same items in their new products. And the company is also spending several times more on the PS5's cooling unit than is typical for a console. The run on DRAM in particular, according to Bloomberg, has already forced Sony to abandon a plan for a new camera that was to launch alongside the console. And the corporation is planning for the transition between PS4 and PS5 to be far more gradual than PS3 to PS4, as many of PS5's launch games will apparently also be available on PS4. Finally, Bloomberg notes that Sony is so far not expecting to experience manufacturing delays or supply constraints due to coronavirus, an important piece of information considering all PlayStation hardware is made in China. Chris, there is a lot to dissect here.
Yeah.
What do you think about this overall Bloomberg article? By the way, people should go read it if they want. Lots of interesting information in there. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think this pretty much confirms that we're looking at like probably a $500 machine. I think that's that's pretty safe. I would be shocked if it was, because like $470 is just such a weird, like it's not even an appealing number. You know what I mean? So
no, it's not.
Yeah, so I think $499 is probably a safe bet. It's interesting that they're thinking that like they won't be able to match Microsoft's price point, because I don't see why they would. I don't see why that would be the case if they're using more or less the same types of components. That's actually interesting. That's actually interesting Xbox information. Because they clearly like I'm sure both of them know what the other machines is probably going to be at this point. But that's very strange. The cooling unit being very, very like several times more expensive is also a strange thing for a console.
Yeah, it seems to indicate to me that I guess the price went up from like $1 per cooling unit to like $4 per cooling unit.
Right.
I guess that indicates that this system is like really beefy, which I think we already know. But you're right in terms of the $381 per unit of PS4 at manufacturer allowed them to logically land on $400. Nice even round number. So I think you're right. I think we are looking at a $500 console. Maybe you look at a $449 console, although it's really rare. I can't really think of any console that launched midway between an even 100 number. I could be wrong, but I don't think... I'd have to think more deeply about that, but I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Yeah.
So I think first of all, I've said this in the past. I don't think $500 is unreasonable. Like, I don't think that that's an unreasonable price. That's barely more in real money than PS4 cost at launch at $400. So with inflation, it's in real money, it's like $40 more. Yeah. I don't really think that that's like a big deal. I think people complaining about $500 for a console at this point are being a little unreasonable in terms of the real value of the money. But what isn't baked in here, and it's unclear to me if this is baked into the production cost itself. Bloomberg's a business publication, so I think that they would know this one way or the other. But $450 per production console doesn't seem to bake in other things that would be necessary for them to extract profit, including shipping it from China around the world and then splitting money with whoever is selling the console, Amazon or GameStop or Game or whatever you have going on. So $500 just seems logical if they want to extract profit out of it. And I think that they're really eager to do that because people will remember that Sony's stock really boomed when PS4 launched because they were making money on the console. They were making lots of money on every console, like $15 per console, above and beyond their 30% cut of every game that's sold on the console. So I think that you're right. They're looking at $500 here. And I think that that's perfectly reasonable. Joe B wrote into us and said, hey, bust a cap in your ass, Colin, and bust a nut in his ass, Chris. That's fucked up.
Yeah, man.
That's fucked up. With the new reports of the PS5 price to manufacturer, do you guys think it's safe to bet that the two powerhouses in the industry will be releasing at $499 each? Also, thoughts on Sony seemingly taking the Xbox approach of delaying console exclusives a year or two. Keep making weekdays great. Thank you, Joe. So there's a little bit to get into here, Chris. I think both agree we're looking at $500, but I think we're probably looking at the same for Xbox One Series X. Now, it would be interesting if they could get their, or Xbox Series X. It would be interesting if they could get theirs down to $400. Microsoft, I think, is more able to eat lots of money. But the ironic thing about selling consoles at a loss is the more you sell, the more you lose. It actually becomes a counterintuitive situation for them economically.
Yeah, because you have to make more of them.
Exactly. And So if you sell like millions and millions and millions of units at a $15 loss, then actually at some point you want to stop selling consoles or start getting your costs down and start getting the licensing fees out of the game sold. So I think that they both settling at $500. Remember, Xbox One was $500 in 2013. So that's actually cheaper for them. It actually optically makes more sense for them to stay there and say like, well, we're charging the same price. It's actually by inflation about $50 cheaper. I think that would be a really nice thing for them to do. I think Sony undercutting them so severely with PS4 gives them less flexibility in that sense. But we're going to find out what happens. But Chris, the bigger thing here that Joe wrote in about is people were making a big to-do, and I was too, about Microsoft saying that Xbox One or Xbox Series X won't have any true exclusives for 12 to 18 months after launch. Sounds like Sony might be doing the same thing, according to this Bloomberg write-up. What do you think of that, about there being no native PS5 exclusives? It does conflict with what Sony had said earlier, that there will be PS5 exclusives, but it sounds like that might not be the case. What do you think?
Well, is that what they said?
Let me see. I don't have any.
Because I thought, I might be remembering it wrong, but I remember it being that many of PS5's launch games will apparently also be available on PS4.
That might be what it says. I'm going to pull it up now.
Yeah.
But even then, I feel like...
Because that makes sense, because that's like a transitional generation thing. You're going to have like an Assassin's Creed, or like a... like maybe not Assassin's Creed exactly, but like something like that just sort of exists on, multiple platforms at once. It does make sense to me. I don't know. I never had a problem with the Xbox Series X approach of having console exclusives delayed, just because I feel like we're at a point now where the machines... This isn't like the N64 days anymore, where the machine that comes afterwards is going to do shit that is just implausible on the previous machines. What we're going to be seeing is like, hey, the new machines are going to have no load times. Hey, there's going to be like way more processing power. They're going to look way better. They're going to load way faster. Games, I guess the way they're going to be developed is going to be like significantly improved. But at a passing glance, they're going to be ultimately the same game. Like, you play Horizon Zero Dawn and you play Horizon 2 on a PS5, you're probably only going to really notice the fact that it looks better. Like, there's no fundamental change in what a video game is or what a video game can be in the way that they're used to be whenever a new console generation would launch. So as long as they can promise like a premium experience on the new consoles, as long as they can promise like, hey, you're going to want to play it on the new machines because it's going to be a way, 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 way better experience. But, we know that it's not easy for people to transition into new hardware now. It's not as easy of a sell as it used to be. So if you need to take your time and you feel like, hey, you still want to support PlayStation and you still want to be in the PlayStation ecosystem, but you don't want to shell out $500 for a console right away, it's a good way to build, public relations with your consumers. It's consumer friendly because it tells your audience, hey, you're not going to miss out just because you can't jump onto the ship right away.
Yeah, the segue mantra mentality may be wise, especially since it seems both manufacturers are doing it. You're right. I found the quote in the Bloomberg article. By the way, the Bloomberg article, let me scroll up here, is called "Sony is struggling with PlayStation 5 price due to costly parts," in case anyone wants to check it out. Yeah, so here it is. It says, Sony executives are voicing patience about the next console's pricing as they anticipate the transition to be a gradual one, said people familiar with the day-to-day operations. Many of the games launched for the PlayStation 5, so like Chris said, many, will also be available to play on the predecessor machine, so revenue from software and related network services is expected to keep the business performance intact.
Yeah.
Microsoft and Sony are both expecting their respective online subscription services revenue, or expanding, those subscription services, revenue from which may allow their greater flexibility on hardware pricing. So lots to be seen still here.
But that seems to indicate to me that there will still be games that you can only get on PS5 at launch.
I hope so.
Yeah, presumably single player games. Like, I think, particularly, I think it's very smart of Microsoft to put Halo as the title that launches the new machine, but is also playable on previous generations, because that's a game that's, even if the Xbox Series X sells a meager amount, that game is going to be heavily populated. That is going to have a healthy population because it now has a previous generation of people who can jump into it. And I think it's also going to be on Game Pass, so it's probably going to be fucking huge with that. I think, generally speaking, I think the segue kind of mentality is pretty good. It's not as exciting, I guess, from like a spectative standpoint, but ultimately I think it's a very consumer friendly move. I think it's totally fine. I've got no issue as long as the new machines run these games with a considerable, boost in performance or power or whatever.
I don't know. I just want something new, even though I don't need it, even though I don't really care. You know, it's exciting in some way. I just want to see what the exclusive games are going to be and then go from there. I mean, I'm going to get one even if there are no games available for it because I'm just that guy. So I don't know what you want from me. There is an interesting question here from Lemony Snicket. Isn't there a book series about this young man?
Yeah, series of unfortunate events.
He says, Halo C Squared. News was going around last night about PS5 pricing rumors and how they're even struggling to source certain parts for the machine. I'm posting this here in case I forgot to post it in the Sacred Symbols for next week. Has there ever been a console delay? What would the ramifications be if Sony delays by a couple months, perhaps even a year? So I actually looked into this because I could only think of one example. And I think that the only notable example is the one I already knew about. PlayStation 3 was delayed. Now, we didn't know this at the time, but PS3 was originally slated to come out internally in 2005, and they delayed it a full year, in fact, to 2006, as you guys will recall. Now, I did find this on Reddit, because I looked this up, and I don't know if it's accurate or not, but someone there said the Atari 7800, so one of the predecessors to the famous Atari 2600, the VCS, had a test launch in June 1984, but between the breakup of Atari and the home console crash, Atari ultimately decided to pull the system. When the NES started to get hot in 1986, they then the mothballed 7800 stock repackaged and relaunched that summer. So that's probably the only other example, and that was due to sheer economics, of course. You'll note that there have been the reverse. Sega Saturn famously came out before it was supposed to be ready. They surprise launched it at E3 in 1995, which was a horrible idea, but they did do that. So consoles are typically not delayed. No, we at least don't learn about the delays publicly. And the ramifications for Sony as a corporation could be significant if they delay the console. And it sounds like what we were talking about last week with coronavirus and the investment banker or the investment bank telling their clients that the possibility of a delay. It seems like Bloomberg says Sony doesn't anticipate that delay, and they're talking candidly with their employees. So it's on the record, but on background. So doesn't sound like anything's going to happen bad there, but we'll find out, I guess. The manufacturing is going to begin this spring, according to Bloomberg. So that is very exciting. Hopefully we'll see some leaks. I'm sure we will. If these Chinese workers are going to have to start leaking these consoles in order to pay for their coronavirus medicine for their sick loved ones. So
good Lord.
It's all going to pay. It's all going to pay.
Yeah.
Nick Chavez wrote in and said, hey, Cancer Colin and Coronavirus Chris, what alternative manufacturing strategy could Sony take for PS5 if coronavirus is killing working class people in East Asia at an alarming rate? Do you think PS5 has the possibility of being made in the USA? Thanks, and God bless America. I think that there's a 0% chance of them making it in the USA. And also, I don't know that it's killing people at an alarming rate in all of East Asia. It seems that it's definitely killing lots of people in China, which is horrible.
Yeah.
The thing that came to mind for me first was you go to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Or, maybe even go to India. So we will find out, but no, it will not be manufactured in the US. Console will just be way too expensive. I think it'll be manufactured at Foxconn and everything's going to be fine, but we will see. All right, Chris, there was something else in the Bloomberg story. Number 2, the same Bloomberg story about the trials and tribulations with PlayStation 5's manufacturer makes a quick but important note about PlayStation VR. Namely that Sony does intend on releasing a second iteration of the device following PlayStation 5's launch, though any further details are still unknown. While this isn't official confirmation, this is essentially the most concrete word we've gotten so far on Sony's future plans for its successful virtual reality hardware. It's unclear if the original PSVR will work on its own with PlayStation 5, though the console's backwards compatibility with PS4 games indicates that it almost certainly will. At 5 million units sold and counting, PSVR is the most popular virtual reality headset in the history of the industry, having launched back in October of 2016. Kirill Demochkin wrote in, said, hello, gents. As it seems apparent that Sony is going to focus more on PSVR with PS5, I would love to hear your thoughts on what you think is going to be their strategy for launching and marketing the headset. Besides the obvious improvements in setup and usability, fuck those cables, I agree. What are the main features you want to see in PSVR 2 and its integration with PS5? Thanks for making my boring lecture-filled Tuesdays that much more fun. Thank you for your support and question. Chris, what do you think about all this? PSVR 2, I think we knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Now we know it's going to be coming after PS5 launches. Seems to be all but confirmed. What do you think? What should they do to make this more appealing?
Honestly, I think a lot of it just comes down to the setup, man. I think that's the main thing that they're going to want to focus on. Just making that thing easier to use than something. Because ironically, even the more heavy, like high-end VR units, even though they require like a first-time initial kind of pain in the ass setup, you got to like hang up these sensors and you got to like drill into the wall and like hang them up and you got to have all this shit. But after that, it's way, way, way easier to play like a Vive than it is to play a PSVR. It just is. Because that machine, that weird little box that it comes with is just such a fucking eyesore. It reminds me of do you remember the Xbox 360 HD DVD drive?
Yeah.
It reminds me of that fucking just like a garish, smaller PS. It just looks like a garish, smaller PS5 that's just like sitting next to it, and it's just got all these cables looking at it. Looks like fucking Medusa. It looks terrible. And, you know, as long as they can alleviate that and make it at least somewhat more powerful, maybe like they don't need, maybe if they could find a way to not need a camera, that'd be wild.
Yeah, I wonder, they could do that, right? I guess theoretically with like gyros and stuff like that.
Yeah, it wouldn't be, I don't think it would be difficult. It might be expensive though.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that the price point, well, it's interesting that they kind of buried in that Bloomberg article that they were planning a camera, which they canceled. It's unclear if we're going to be using the same PlayStation camera with PS4, with PS5, if that does well enough, if they're going to be new controllers. People write into us and say like PlayStation Move controllers are like really hard to find. Like you can't find them new. They're really expensive on the aftermarket, which is weird. You'd think that you would want to supply this old technology to people to be able to play your stuff. And I understand the continuity between the devices so that people have, it's the cheapest possible thing. If you already have PlayStation Move, you don't have to buy the controllers or the camera again. But I think these things didn't proliferate enough for them to really have to worry about that. So I would think you would want to start from scratch. But price, I think, is the most prohibitive thing. You'll remember when PSVR came out, it cost the same exact amount as the PS4. So you'd basically have to spend $600 plus games plus tax, of course, to enjoy PSVR. And so I think they need to get the price down. But as with all technology, like I was in Target the other day, and dude, TVs are so cheap. I couldn't believe how cheap TVs are because I hadn't looked at them in many years. I have like a TV that's like probably almost 8 years old or something now.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe it. Like every TV was like so cheap.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Technology is just coming down so substantially in price. So I remember paying like, I paid like $1,500 or something for my TV, and it was probably worthless now. So hopefully they'll be able to kind of get that under control, but I think they have bigger fish to fry right now with figuring out what they're going to do with PS5 and getting those components and competing with other corporations. So all these manufacturers like Nvidia or whoever, and AMD or whoever I guess not Nvidia, but AMD and Intel or whoever's making a lot of this stuff, they're probably fucking thrilled everyone's competing for their chips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Driving the prices up. Number 3. Late in 2019, we learned of the surprising news that Sony was taking the rare step of expanding its first-party roster of studios with an external purchase. The first of its kind since PlayStation brought Sucker Punch into the fold around Infamous 2's launch on PS3 in 2011. Insomniac Games, the team behind Spyro, Ratchet & Clank, Resistance, and most recently Spider-Man, was the purchase studio in question, and now, thanks to Sony's recent financial release, we know exactly what the purchase price was, $229 million. According to the financial statement in question, it was primarily a cash deal. While the acquisition didn't do much for Sony on the IP front, it never owned Spyro and already owns Ratchet & Clank and Resistance, the deal went a long way to securing Insomniac's talent wholly for Sony, as the team has been long eyeing other publishing partners for the last 10 years, including Electronic Arts with Fuse and Microsoft with the aforementioned Sunset Overdrive. Insomniac runs 2 studios, one in Burbank, California, and the other in North Carolina, and both a new Ratchet & Clank game and a sequel to Spider-Man are widely understood to be in development for next-gen hardware. Ed White wrote in and said, "Gentlemen, greetings from Corona-infested Singapore. I nearly spat out my bat soup this morning when I saw the price Sony paid for Insomniac. They have not bought any notable IP with that money, as Ratchet, Spider-Man, and Resistance are already in-house. They are simply buying talent, which is a very flaky asset and liable to up and leave at a moment's notice. There is always the risk that you are left with a brand name and nothing else. See Microsoft's Rare and literally anything EA had ever touched. Microsoft's Rare is especially a good example because Rare cost like twice as much back then too. So it cost way more than twice as much. And they got really not much from that. And obviously I think EA bought Respawn for a similar amount of money as well. What do you think about this price paid? I mean, this seems to be, I agree actually, this seems to be a risky acquisition just because they basically own everything that Insomniac has made. So you're buying a studio based on the assumption that everyone sticks together. And that just doesn't happen in the industry very often. So I wonder if you think that this is a risk.
I mean, I think it is, but it's also, I mean, it's good to have Insomniac in the fold and not running around with other people, I think. I wouldn't necessarily have paid that much. That is an insane amount of money for a team. But, I mean, Insomniac's been a pretty consistent team, I feel like, right? I feel like there hasn't been, like, Ted Price has been there forever.
Yeah, Ted Price is now filthy rich. And, guys like Marcus Smith have been there. Drew Murray left a couple years ago, and he's at the Initiative now, heading up one of their teams, so he bailed. But yeah, there are definitely, James Stevenson's been there for a long time. A lot of people, a lot of good people at that studio, they do stick together, and they do have a great corporate culture. So that does keep people involved, and this extra infusion of security might allow them to get more money and salary, might allow them to get greater bonus checks, and it creates a lot of security for the overall product. But I just think when you spend that kind of money, you usually spend it to acquire more than the talent. You spend it to acquire some sort of IP, and the only notable IP that Sony acquired was Sunset Overdrive, and they can't even publish the first one. So because Microsoft, it's unclear for how long, but Microsoft owns the publishing rights to the first one. I'd love to see that game ported to the PlayStation, but I don't think it's going to be possible. I do think, based on all of the social media chatter from Insomniac's various pages, that we're going to see Resistance.
Yeah.
They just keep tweeting out Resistance shit. I don't know why they keep doing it if not to tease something about it. So there's that. But yeah, the security, I think, will allow them to safely create their games and not have to chase the next partner, which has been their thing forever. They've always done that, and for the last 10 years or so, and it's not worked out great for them. You'll remember that Electronic Arts really fucked up Overstrike, which ended up being Fuse, by focus testing it to death, and they just ruined that game. And I think that Insomniac has become increasingly open about that. And Sunset Overdrive, I know that Microsoft was a good partner for them on the development side, but they weren't a good partner for them on the marketing side, and the game didn't sell well. So they never really got what they wanted. And it seems like the two sides realized that they needed each other and wanted each other. And after straying, they came back. And so I think it's a good sign.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's a risk or not. I don't know if it's a risk because as long as they get, like, you're going to get your Ratchet and Clank game and you get your Spider-Man game, at the very least, like, those games are going to make lots of money, and maybe they'll just make their profit back. And then if something happens terrible, then something happens. But it is worth noting that a lot of the studios that Sony has purchased, Naughty Dog back in the early 2000s, Sucker Punch in 2011, etc., have widely kept their teams together over long periods of time. So maybe there's nothing to fear after all. And by the way, if you own a stake of Insomniac, you're not just getting paid right off the bat. You're getting paid over time. And that's how they keep you from leaving. So that might trickle down to everybody. There might be money on the line for everyone. Yeah. Saying, like, you have to stay here, and then you slowly get your $10,000 bonus and your $20,000 bonus, whatever the case might be. I don't know, but that's possible. But congratulations to Ted Price, who has a lot of money now.
Yeah.
All right. Number 4. We've known for some time that French developer Quantic Dream was set to end its longtime exclusive collaboration with Sony, one that goes back to Heavy Rain on PlayStation 3. Now, however, we've heard directly from the studio via a post on its website. A post meant to celebrate its 23rd anniversary as a team, but one that talks more deeply about what its plan is moving forward. The post reads in part, quote, "Thanks to Detroit Become Human, we've been able to realize the vision we held dear since the creation of Quantic Dream. And so, for the first time in 23 years of working with prestigious publishers, we are now in a position to self-publish. This new venture will allow us to make decisions in total independence and to address the technological and strategic opportunities of next-generation platforms. It will also allow us to help other developers by providing investment and development support so they can fully express their talents," end quote. In other words, the team will be going out alone without a publisher and will actually act as a publisher for other teams for the first time in its history. Interestingly, the blog post mentions Sony and PlayStation precisely 0 times, and talks about launching its games on PC as one of its biggest milestones so far. Quantic Dream was founded in 1997 and has 5 games under its belt so far. Its last 3 games, 2010's Heavy Rain, 2013's Beyond Two Souls, and 2018's Detroit Become Human, were all PlayStation exclusive games funded by Sony, though all have since migrated to PC. Something happened between these two sides, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know where or when. This was always a studio that surprised me that Sony didn't buy, because they're such a prestige team. But I think with the bad PR that Quantic Dream started to develop, especially in French circles, with some, I don't want to call it sexual harassment, but like some untoward shit happening at the studio apparently. And then I've also heard directly from Sony and Sony PR back in the day that they're just really impossible to work with and really difficult people to work with. So there seems to be that, but there seems to be no love lost. I was really shocked reading the blog post. They do not mention Sony or PlayStation at all in the entire blog post, even though Sony kind of put them on the map with their collaboration, and they put themselves on the map too, obviously, with their games. But they had mentioned like with that game Fahrenheit, I think, had like David Bowie in it or whatever. Yeah. They mentioned that like 3 times, but they don't mention Sony and PlayStation at all. So I can only help but read between the lines and see that things didn't end well between them, and that they were both happy to not work with each other anymore. But I'm happy for their success, and I'm happy for agnostic gamers that can finally get their future products on their consoles, because I still feel like Quantic Dream's games were some of the most substantial console exclusives that Sony had, simply from a intrigue perspective. Heavy Rain's awesome. I love that game. And I thought Detroit Become Human was one of 2018's best games. I loved it. I know you feel a little differently about those games.
Yeah. I would say those are good games though. Beyond Two Souls though, I think is like the outlier there.
Yeah, I agree. No good. It was made quickly, which I don't think helped it, but it also was, as people might recall, told in a really strange achronological or unchronological way.
Yeah.
And they realized that was such a mistake that when they ported it to PS4, they actually allowed people to play it in order of chronology, the different scenes, which made the game apparently much more coherent. I think they just rushed that game out. I don't know what the point was of that, but I didn't like it either. That was a game I didn't care for at all. But I loved Heavy Rain. Really satisfying platinum. I thought Detroit Become Human was really prescient and interesting. So highly recommend their games. And as they said in their post, you can play them on PC if you want as well. So congratulations to them. I'll be interested to see what they come up with next. Keep a close eye on them. Number 5, Electronic Arts is shuffling around some of its internal studio resources, which will have the greatest effect on its ongoing Need for Speed racing franchise. According to Games Industry International, EA-owned Ghost Games of Sweden will be rebranded as EA Gothenburg, which it was originally known as upon its founding in 2011. It was rebranded a year later in 2012 in anticipation of the first of its 4 Need for Speed games, 2013's Need for Speed Rivals, which appeared on both PS3 and PS4, 2015's Need for Speed, 2017's Need for Speed Payback, and 2019's Need for Speed Heat followed, all of which appeared on PS4. However, while Need for Speed will unsurprisingly continue forward, it will do so under the direction of Criterion, a studio founded in 1996, but one EA purchased in 2004. Criterion is a deeply experienced racing studio that created the Burnout franchise originally under Acclaim back in 2001, before segueing to EA with Burnout 3 in 2004. It only created 2 Need for Speed games, 2010's Need for Speed Hot Pursuit and 2012's Need for Speed Most Wanted, the former coming to PS3 and the latter to both PS3 and Vita. EA Gothenburg will stay put in Sweden and will now be an engineering support team, since the studio has deep knowledge of Electronic Arts' proprietary engine Frostbite. However, non-engineering and engine-related roles will not be kept on board, leaving about 30 heads in danger of being laid off, though EA hopes to keep all of the at-risk talent within EA by transferring them, when possible, to other studios under the umbrella. So this is an interesting little piece of knowledge, and I take heart in this actually, Chris, because Frostbite seems to be really annoying everyone.
Yeah.
To the extent that they need a studio outside of DICE to actually just deal with the problem of Frostbite. So what do you make of this movement from Ghost Games to Criterion for Need for Speed and the future of Frostbite as an engine?
Criterion's cool. I like Burnout is probably my favorite racing game, I think, like that's ever been made. It's just so high octane and absurd that I'm actually shocked that it hasn't seen any kind of resurgence or reinvention at all, because I feel like it actually would flourish quite a bit in that scene. if given a proper opportunity to. But I think, I don't know, the development shifting over to that team is exciting. It's kind of cool. The Frostbite part of this story is like the most interesting thing to me because it's like so clear that engine is designed for first-person shooters and not much else. And the fact that they're just shoehorning into everything now to the point where people don't know what the fuck they're doing with it if they're not making an FPS is kind of I don't know. Making a studio to deal with the problems of like using an engine seems kind of like solving a problem in the exact wrong way. Like, shouldn't you be like working with the engine to solve those problems instead of making another team to aggregate the problems? Like, it just seems very bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know what the intent is here. It feels to me that DICE, which is the creator of Frostbite, is so bogged down with making games that they just can't run interference for this thing anymore. And this caused EA to have to really figure out how to move the parts around in order to accommodate that. But it just makes you wonder, right? Because Sony has their proprietary engine in Decima, and yet a game like Days Gone used Unreal Engine 4, which means Sony had to pay a 5% fee or whatever on monies made to use that, unless they made another deal, which is possible. In order to use that engine, it would have been better for them to use Decima from a monetary position, but it clearly didn't suit the team. Mm-hmm. And I know it was surprising because Sony doesn't do that very often, but it made me wonder why they don't do that more often in other studios. Is money so tight at EA that they can't afford to go pay a licensing fee for the engine that makes sense for their particular game? I know that the goal is to have, and every publisher's goal is to have their own engine that they can use and avoid licensing fees, and I get that, and middleware and all of that, but you don't necessarily want to play that game, pardon the pun, if it's easier for your studio to make a game that's better, and you pay a small fee, whatever that might be, in order to keep the wheels greased and the wheels turning, in this case, quite literally, with racing games. So yeah, I see what they're doing, because, Sony has a similar thing going on at Naughty Dog called ICE, the initiative for a common engine, but they're just housed at Naughty Dog. They have nothing to do with Naughty Dog. They're just there, and they help deal with all the engine problems that they encounter. So it makes sense. It's just, to me, the biggest confusion, Chris, is that Ghost Games made good Need for Speed games that were well received. Need for Speed Heat is selling extraordinarily well, and we're going to talk about sales in January soon, just in a moment, but that was the biggest surprise to me of all, is like Criterion really isn't known for Need for Speed. Ghost Games, if anything, was more known for Need for Speed. They made twice as many of them. So yeah, that was my biggest confusion there. But we'll find out how it all goes and what is the future for Need for Speed. I agree with you about Burnout. It would be cool to see that series come back, but I think EA is just worried about competing with their own product. Yeah, which they didn't seem to be too worried about with like Titanfall and Battlefield, but they're certainly going to be worried about with Burnout and Need for Speed, I guess. So I think that's why it's kept under wraps. But yeah, hopefully the people at Ghost Games that are in danger, like the creative people there, find their way to other studios. Sweden's got a really vibrant game dev community, not only within EA with DICE, but outside of EA too. So I'm sure they'll all be fine. But we'll wish our very best to them. Number 6. There's a very good reason why Ubisoft's The Division 2, launched about a year ago, can be purchased for dirt cheap on PS4 right now. You can get it for $3, by the way. It's because a major secret expansion is just around the corner. Kotaku reports on this expansion called Warlords of New York, a secret kept so close to Ubisoft's vest that it's coming out on March 3rd, a very short time from now. While 2 Coney Island-centric missions are currently available for the core game for both Season Pass owners and a la carte purchasers, they are a mere segue into the Warlords of New York mega expansion, which will cost $30 and add 4 more zones to the game's 11 already existing zones in Washington, D.C., spanning New York City's Wall Street, Chinatown, and elsewhere. The story of Warlords New York of New York revolves around Aaron Keener, who was one of the antagonists of the original Division, which launched in 2016. From this point on, The Division 2 will operate as a so-called seasonal game released in 3-month chunks, with new quests, events, collectibles, and more launched on a predictable schedule. The Division 2's fanbase has long been disenchanted with the core game, and Ubisoft's silence was in part designed to respark waning interest by announcing something major that's also close to release. The overall game's level cap will be increased from 30 to 40, and more powerful gear will be available to find too. Chris, what did you make of this? This was a huge surprise. They knew something was up when The Division 2 started costing $3, literally. Yeah. On PSN, and even at retail, it's like costing nothing too. What do you make about this whole major expansion, $30, and really hiding it until the very last moment.
I don't know if it's that smart. I don't know if that's smart for a game like The Division. Like, I feel like that's smart for a game like Zelda, or like a game like, I don't know, something with a little bit more of a rapport. Like, I feel like The Division 2 isn't like a bad game by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely not a game that you want to not tell people about if you have something for it. You know what I mean? Like, that's a game that's in a very competitive space. It's a game that is, I don't want to say it's niche necessarily, but I think you get what I mean, where it's like,
yeah,
so
it's not the hit that they thought it was going to be, for sure.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know if it's really wise to have this like kind of surprise mindset when, you know, your main fan base is probably already starving for information, and they're the people that you want to please more than anyone. I don't know. That just seems like a weird move to me.
Yeah, I feel like I like it from a marketing standpoint, but like you said, it might not make sense for a game that's struggling to communicate with its audience. Now, I actually really like The Division 2, so
yeah,
I beat it. I really enjoyed it. I'm not one of these people that plays it over and over again and redoes all the missions and tries to grind for loot and go into the dark zone. I just don't play like that. I play by myself. I play the story. I just enjoy the combat and the mechanics of the game. So I was really quite lost on like why people were so upset with it. So I was reading a little bit about it, and apparently Ubisoft like was well aware that people were upset with the game and really stuck to their guns by not, you know, at least in their vision of marketing Warlords of New York, by just not saying anything and making it seem like they had no plan, which is fun. But like you said, it's also frustrating and a little bit risky because, as the Kotaku article notes, and it's a good article, you guys should go check it out. I think Steven Totillo wrote it. They note that the Division 2, I guess they invited people over to see the game and were kind of teasing that stuff was coming, but didn't really talk about much. Mm-hmm. And people really were getting quite frustrated with it. But that the bottom really fell out with Ubisoft when the last Ghost Recon game came out in Breakpoint, and everyone hated it, and it sold like shit. And you'll recall that like everything Ubisoft did after that was delayed.
Yeah.
Indefinitely, including Watch Dogs and a bunch of other stuff. So, it seems like they might even delay the announcement of Assassin's Creed over that. So I think that they're just trying a new way forward. And I really want the series to work because I actually really like this series a lot. I'm not a multiplayer guy. I'm not typically into team-based stuff like this, but I just love the mechanics of The Division, and I love the story and the setting so much that it's something that just appeals to me. But if it appeals to me, and I'm not even trying to be facetious, but if it appeals to me, it's probably not going to be that appealing to the people that it's actually designed for, because I do not play these games the way you're quote unquote supposed to play them. So there is something to be said about that. But I got to tell you, Chris, I don't play a lot of DLC. We talk a lot about how DLC just comes out too late. I'm disinterested. I move on to the next game. I'm going to play this. I'm going to buy this.
Cool.
And play it because I'm eager to play more of The Division 2. Plus, I didn't do everything I wanted to do in the core game. I didn't get all the collectibles and all that. Yeah. So it's a game I'd like to add to the list.
It's a good reason to get back into it, I think.
Yeah. $30 is a premium price, though. See, I think they should have gone like $19.99. I think would have been a more appropriate price.
Yeah,
that's a pretty demanding price.
$30 is a bit much, especially because you still have to buy the main game.
Right, exactly. But by the way, the Division 2 probably will not remain at this absurd low price. So I can't imagine many of you don't have $3 to spare in any way, shape, or form. If you have any remote interest in this game, you should probably just go buy it.
Actually, I think it might stay at that price.
I would like that, but I don't know. It seems like they're courting people, right?
Right. Well, I think that's also true, but like I think because the DLC is only purchasable with like you can only get it with real money, and it's like a $30 expansion, and the base game is so low in price, I feel like that entices people to at least jump in and then populate the game again. And it allows you to be like, oh, well, this is a pretty heavily populated game. It's got a healthy population. Maybe I'll spring for that, that DLC, because a lot of multiplayer games live or die on their population. Like you can't play a game that has like 10 people playing it. You're never going to find a game.
Right. That's a good point.
I don't know.
Perfectly fair point.
Perfectly
fair point. We'll see. I wouldn't risk it though.
Yeah.
Out there. I wouldn't risk it. Number 7. If you liked Remedy Entertainment's quirky superpower-fueled action game Control, then you'll be pleased to know that you're probably getting more of it. In a brief conversation with website IGN, Remedy's communication director Thomas Puha noted, quote, "A lot of our recent work was about getting Remedy into a position where we can create Control and we can hopefully keep making more Control. So yeah, absolutely, we'd like to make more. And especially with all the love we're getting. There are so many things we know we can do and explore, so I'll say this is just the start," end quote. Juha Vainio, the game's executive producer, noted, quote, "There's no one on the current Control team who wants out. There are actually people who want in. So we have a positive problem," end quote. Control has already been confirmed to be getting 2 expansions in 2020 that will further the core game's lore and campaign. One's called The Foundation, which is coming out pretty soon, and the other called AWE. But it sounds like they're speaking above and beyond just that. All of this comes on the back of Remedy's recent financial statement, which confirms that it has 4 teams working in tandem in its home country of Finland. The Control team remains intact, working on the DLC and presumably a sequel, while the much-discussed development of Crossfire X for Xbox One on behalf of South Korean game developer and publisher Smilegate also continues. However, 2 other teams under the studio umbrella are also toiling away. A team working on pre-production of an unannounced product is about 20 heads strong, while another team called Vanguard is 15 heads strong, and is specifically working on a service-based multiplayer game, though its exact nature also remains currently unknown. Control was launched in 2019 by way of publisher 505 Games, and while its sales were relatively soft, it attained a glowing critical reception and was apparently also made cheaply by AAA standards. Remedy is of course best known for its Alan Wake games, which came to Xbox 360 in 2010 and 2012. It also released Quantum Break in 2016 on Xbox One, and began its life as the studio behind the first 2 Max Payne games, which launched in 2001 and 2003. Chris, would you like to see more Control?
Yes, I would. I really, really adored Control. I only wish it ran better, which I hope it will.
Yeah, I imagine they'll fix that with the upcoming console, you would assume. Are you going to play these DLC packs, The Foundation, which I think comes out in March, in AWE?
I have to look into what it is. There's a lot of shit that's going to come out soon, so I feel like I want to maybe not have my plate so full. But if it looks interesting... You know what? I probably will. I miss throwing stuff. as weird as it is.
The game's fun. It's really dense, which is cool in this sense. I like that. Yeah. I don't know what I would want out of more of it. It almost seems like a special game to just leave alone, but I do understand that 505 probably doesn't own the IP, so they can do whatever they want. And I would assume that they want to extract more of a profit out of it. As I recall, they said that they made it for 40 million euro, which is really cheap for a AAA game. And I'm sure that even though the game did sell softly, and it definitely did, that they did make a nice profit on it. So I just don't understand these late DLC packs. I know you have to like play it differently because remember Mass Effect 2 or whatever had like day 1 DLC and everyone fucking flipped out about that. Yeah. So you can't have it like available immediately because people just don't understand how that works, about how like you're not cutting out a piece of the game necessarily and selling it separately. But I feel like launching DLC so much later, I don't really get it most of the time. It disappoints me because I want to go back and play some of this stuff, but I just know I won't. I'm excited that I haven't played Metro Exodus yet, for instance, because I know that that's got some really good DLC and I'll probably just play it all at the same time and it'll be unknown to me. It's like old Fallout games. If you just wait, then you just bake all the DLC in and then it's just a bigger world to explore. But when I play games like right away, like Control, I'm probably never going to go back. But I really did love their attention to lore and detail in the game. It's so dense. I don't think I've ever seen a game that dense with more things to read and experience and watch. Yeah. And I like that a lot.
Remedy in general has always really been good at that kind of thing. Environmental storytelling and having like a really dense... Even in Max Payne, there was a lot of like environmental storytelling that you could really sink your teeth into, even though those games are pretty primitive in comparison to some of the stuff they're making now. I think Control would benefit a lot from, like, I think I said this when we were doing our spoiler cast, or even like when we were just talking about it when it was out, that game would benefit so heavily from just maybe not a horde mode necessarily, but some combat focused thing, because the combat is so cool. Like it's so cool to look at. Like I feel like if you were to show people just the combat in that game, people would be pretty awestruck by it because it's just fucking trippy as hell.
Yeah, it's kinetic. It's really, really fun. It truly is like a really fun game to play. But what's exciting, Chris, about the DLC, apparently the AWE DLC that comes out this summer, is that apparently it's going to wrap it into not into Max Payne, into Alan Wake, which is already, I guess people have already, I don't know anything about Alan Wake. I guess that's already kind of been drawn out of the core game, but the rumor is that it'll be more obvious and overt to have taken place in the Alan Wake universe, which is interesting. And I do wonder, Microsoft published and funded those games, but I do wonder if they'll ever migrate to PlayStation. There's no reason to keep that shit proprietary anymore. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I've always wanted to play them. I never did.
Yeah, it's really good.
Number 8. Back in 2019, we learned that Polish studio People Can Fly. We're going all over Europe today.
Wow.
Polish studio People Can Fly was working with publisher Square Enix on a shooter of some sort called Outriders. Now, thanks to a new trailer released on YouTube, we know that the game is slated to come to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, allowing it to join the first set of confirmed PS5 games. The game looks a great deal like Destiny, and apparently it will play a whole lot like it too, since it's an online-centric co-op FPS RPG. The game is slated to launch by the end of 2020, and it seems likely that it's a PlayStation 5 launch game, though that hasn't yet been confirmed. People Can Fly was founded nearly 20 years ago, and it was at first best known for its FPS game Painkiller. However, it wasn't until 2011's Bulletstorm that the developer finally released a game on PlayStation consoles after working alongside Epic on the Gears of War series. Indeed, the original Gears of War developer Epic owned People Can Fly between 2012 and 2015, though the studio not only went independent once more thereafter, but expanded outside of Poland, opening a studio in New York City. Chris, I don't know if you looked at the trailer for this game. This game looks so fucking generic.
Yeah.
That I can't, I'm not going to play it anyway, but I don't know. You play these kinds of games, so I'm curious what you think, especially as a Destiny fan. It looked like Destiny to me. I didn't even really see how it was very much different.
It looks a lot like Destiny, and it looks like something that isn't offering me even half of what Destiny is. I feel like I already have Destiny. You know what I mean? Like, why even, like, even if you were making, like, another shared world looter, shooter, FPS, RPG thing, why did you make it so obviously... It just looks like that. Like, I don't know how to put it other than it just looks exactly like Destiny. It's wild.
I don't know about this one.
Yeah, I don't know about it either. Which is a shame because I actually remember Bulletstorm being ridiculous. And, like, I really liked Bulletstorm for how just absurd it was. I wish the control scheme I remember in that game being horrendous. But... like, actually, like, that game was cool as shit. Like, you could whip people into, like, spikes, and it was, like, really style-oriented. And that was the first time I'd ever really seen, an FPS that had, like, Devil May Cry style mechanics. And it's like, why wouldn't you... How do you go from that to just copying Destiny? It's just weird.
Yeah, it is strange. Square Enix is a good publishing partner to be with, but I feel like... that partnership has mitigated their ability to take any risks. I feel like this is one of those games, it is cross-gen, so this might not be accurate, but we always talk about it, like, launch games just do well. And I feel like it's one of those games that they just want to get out and see what happens with it. But like you said, you need a player base, and if you can't peel people away from Destiny, and you can't peel people away from Borderlands and whatever people are playing, The Division and Ghost Recon, and I don't know. I feel like this is a pie that's being nibbled by so many different people that I don't know. I feel like the greatest risk now is in making these kinds of games. It used to be the greatest risk was in ignoring these kinds of games, but that's why you have to have people that are like omniscient, basically working at your studio or at your publisher that know the trends that are coming, so that when your game's actually ready to go, then you're prepared to take advantage of an opportune market. Because this game was in development for many years, and it probably seemed like a good idea a few years ago, but when you see all of these different games as a service being destroyed by the big guns that managed to exist, it just seems like the better idea would have been to have made a single player game. But I don't know. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. I like People Can Fly. I think they're a good team. Bulletstorm came to PS4. It was ported to PS4 by Gearbox, I think a year or two ago, and it was actually free, I think, on PS Plus. So if people out there listen to me when I tell you to download those games and add them to your download list, then you might even be able to play it for free.
Yeah.
Well, we'll wish them the best. I don't know, but I'll be interested to see what you think of it when the game comes out.
Yeah.
We'll actually find out for sure. All right. Number 9, the MPD Group has revealed data for American software sales for the month of January 2020. Software spending was down substantially year over year, though that isn't necessarily a huge surprise considering there wasn't much launched of substance. Action RPG Dragon Ball Z Kakarot was the month's best-selling game, having launched in the middle of the month. Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Madden NFL 20, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and Grand Theft Auto 5 rounded out the top 5. Other notable games include Red Dead Redemption at 10, Minecraft at 11, Battlefront 2 at 14, Need for Speed Heat at 16, sorry Ghost Games, and Mortal Kombat 11 at 19. The top 10 best-selling games on PS4 only were in order: Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Madden NFL 20, Grand Theft Auto 5, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, NBA 2K20, Need for Speed Heat, Minecraft, FIFA 20, and Red Dead Redemption 2. Like with software, hardware sales were also down substantially. As reported by Push Square, PS4 and Xbox One performed worse in January than Xbox 360 and PS3 did in January of 2013, the last January before the next-gen consoles launched. That said, 75 months into their respective launches, PS3 and 360's combined sales were, were lower than PS4 and Xbox One's by 6%. Some game-specific data was also released globally. Tekken 7 has now sold more than 5 million units since launching on console in the early summer of 2017, according to website Gamatsu, while Push Square reports that Devil May Cry 5, which launched nearly a year ago, has now passed 3 million sold. So congratulations to them.
Yeah,
Tekken 7. Didn't play Tekken 7, but Devil May Cry 5 is on the list. I actually bought it.
Yeah.
If I'll ever play it, I don't know. Who knows if I'll ever actually play it, but it is on the list.
It's very good.
It looks good. It does look good. I'm not a huge Devil May Cry fan, but for some reason, Chris, I'm just being pulled in by these old style arcade games.
Yeah, for sure.
Like arcade action games.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I've never really been that big of a fan of them. But Devil May Cry 5 was just delightfully wacky.
It looks cool. It looks exactly like what I'm looking for because we just don't get many games like that anymore. Yeah. And I should be clear, I don't mean an arcade game. I mean arcadey in its action. Of course.
I think you'd love it, honestly.
I do love my weird Japanese shit.
Yeah.
So, do love it. All right, Chris, let's go to this next one. This is an interesting piece of news. Number 10, the Take-Two owned studio previously known only as 2K Silicon Valley now has an official moniker, 31st Union. The team was founded by Michael Condrey, one of the founders of what would eventually be known as Electronic Arts Visceral Games, the since closed team, most notably behind Dead Space, as well as the co-founder of Activision-owned Sledgehammer Games, the Call of Duty-centric studio that Condrey left in 2018. Take-Two Interactive brought Condrey on board in 2019 to found a Northern California-based internal development studio, and that's what this team is. In a piece on Games Industry International revealing the name of the team, Condrey notes that his studio is 50 heads strong and growing, with a satellite team being built overseas in Spain. Condrey notes that a second satellite studio may also crop up, though it remains to be seen where as of now. 31st Union's inaugural game is in pre-production and will obviously be published by Take-Two imprint 2K Games, though the nature of what the title is still remains to be seen. It has been confirmed to be a new IP, however. So we now know the name of this new studio, 2K. Well, Take-Two really, but 2K as a brand has been greatly expanding and reinforcing its internal studios family.
Yeah.
Which I think is really wise considering what the future is, which is about games and where you can get them.
Yeah.
So I'm actually really rooting for 2K. I feel like they're about, with BioShock and what are they called? I was going to say Cloud Imperium, but that's not right.
Cloud Chamber.
Cloud Chamber. And also they have Hangar 13 still making what appears to be Mafia 4. They're all in Northern California. So they're really siphoning a lot of talent up there. Because I think people would be surprised to learn that there's not a lot of game development studios in Northern California. You have studios like Crystal Dynamics and stuff, but not much. A lot of it's actually in Southern California with Sony Santa Monica, Naughty Dog. Now you have the Initiative down there, Activision Blizzard, Riot. So Insomniac. I think it's Insomniac, of course. So I think that there's a vacuum being filled up there by 2K, which I think is really, really nice. And I like Michael Condrey. I met him a couple times. A really nice guy. So rooting for them and hope that the game that they're making is good. The piece on Games Industry International is interesting because they're really talking a lot about diversity and making a diverse studio. And it's like, I don't care. Just make a good game. And the satellite team that they're making in Spain, I think is interesting too, because there are not that many studios in Spain. The biggest Spanish studio that I can think of, and I'm sure there are others, but is Mercury Steam. And
what do they make?
Steam they made the Castlevania Lords of Shadow games and a couple other games. So they need some help there in Spain, and I think that this might actually allow the talented Spanish devs to go make something good. All right, Chris, finally, number 11 is a wrap-up. Publisher Koei Tecmo has revealed that Nioh 2 has gone gold, confirming its release date of March 12th exclusively on PlayStation 4. Publisher NIS America has revealed that story-driven RPG Udaware Romano, Prelude to the Fallen, is coming to both PS4 and Vita on May 26th. Website Gamatsu reports that HGTV-inspired game House Flipper is coming to PS4 on February 25th. That game looks fucking awesome. Looks totally ridiculous. Website Push Square reports that so-called soccer strategy game Ganbar Super Strikers now has a release date for both PS4 and Vita and will also launch on February 25th. I'm playing that game. That game looks fucking cool. People got to really go check that game out. It's like a turn-based, grid-based strategy game on a soccer field where like you're playing soccer. It looks, I don't know if it's going to be any good, but it looks really neat. I'm excited to play it. The website also reports that the sequel to randomly generated Mega Man-like game 20XX called 30XX is coming to PS4 in 2021. That tactics game Dog Duty is coming to PS4 at some point this spring. That game also looks fucking cool. And that stylish side-scrolling shooter My Friend Pedro has been rated for release on PS4 by Peggy, and so is therefore PlayStation 4 bound at an unknown point in the future, following its release on all other platforms in 2019. Website Polygon reports that RPG cross-dating sim Sakura Wars is coming to PS4 on April 28th. We don't get many Sakura Wars games here in the West, so that's pretty interesting. And finally, the official PlayStation blog reports that adventure game Arcade Spirits comes to PS4 on May 1st, and that stylish action game Bloodroots is coming to PS4 sooner than that on February 28th. That game also looks really cool, so go check that out if you want. Lots of interesting indie games coming out soon. Chris, tradition dictates we now read the new game releases for PlayStation 4, PS Vita, and PSVR, and you will lead off.
Yeah, there aren't that many today, which is good.
Yes, it is good.
Autobahn Police Simulator 2 comes to PS4. Start an even more exciting career as a law enforcer on Europe's fastest road. Your adventure begins in the police station with your colleagues. Over the course of the game, you'll be able to develop the station, take on random missions, and move up in rank.
I feel like this is one of those games where I'm like, I probably would really like this game.
Autobahn Police Simulator 2?
Yeah, it just I like games where it's like just increase your level.
Yeah.
Just find things that make your car faster. That kind of shit. Sounds pretty straightforward.
Surprised you don't like looter shooters, because that's exactly what that is.
I can't like looter shooters because I don't like the genre name.
Right, fair.
See? So that turns me off from it completely. But this is what I always say about like those truck driving simulators and all that. I'm like, man, I probably fucking love this game. But
you should get around to playing instead of 99,000 hours of Dragon Quest.
Yeah, I'm about to eat a gun barrel if I play. If I'm still talking about Dragon Quest next week, I'm gonna fucking kill myself. All right, I'm being perfectly honest with you. Bayonetta comes to PS4. Experience the genesis of the Bayonetta series with the cult classic original action-adventure game. The tantalizing Umbra Witch rises from the depths after half a millennium in slumber with no recollection of her mysterious past. Immediately thrust into battle, she must vanquish her countless enemies to piece together the truth. So, by the way, we'll talk about Vanquish later, but Bayonetta and Vanquish can also be bought together. You can buy them individually as well.
Bullet Sorrow VR comes to PSVR. Bullet Sorrow VR is a FPS VR game, which also contains full story single stages to discover. Using progressive bullet time abilities and a bunker cover system, evade attacks and move on.
Like Hitler's bunker.
I don't know what a bunker cover system is.
I've never heard that in my life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you said FPS. That's what it says here. I'm always confused by that because it's really EF, like we're saying EF, like a vowel. So I would say an FPS VR game. But this is the same argument that people used to have. Like I was a history major, and you would say an historian because it's really historian. But it's I guess what I'm saying, Chris, is a really long-winded and unnecessary way of saying I think that that's grammatically correct.
No. I think it's saying Bullet Sorrow VR is a first-person shooter virtual reality.
Yeah, that's it. You see, they should have wrote it out, and then they wouldn't have had that problem.
Yeah.
DCL, the game, comes to PS4. Experience firsthand the world of a professional drone pilot. Okay. DCL combines the adventure of free flight with the thrill of high-speed racing. Choose between different flight modes that guide new players from novice flyers to professional drone pilots. Do you have what it takes? No, I definitely don't.
Double Dragon and Kunio-kun Retro Brawler Bundle comes to PS4. We're proud to present to you this compilation of 18 titles from the Double Dragon and Kunio-kun series. Among the 15 Kunio-kun titles, 11 of these had not been released in North America yet. All the in-game text has been translated to English. Choose between playing the original version or the quality up version. Some games feature the original version only.
All right, fair enough. I'm actually really excited about this. We talked about this a while ago as a rumor, and then they did confirm it. Arc System Works is the one that's putting this out, as they're now publishing a bunch of stuff. I fucking love me some Kunio-kun. Love it. River City Ransom is what that is for people that aren't Japanese nerds. Draugen comes to PS4. Draugen is a single-player first-person Fjord Noir. That's not a thing. Mystery set in 1920s Norway. Explore a forgotten coastal village in your search for your missing sister, accompanied by your enigmatic young ward, like Robin. Yeah. Together, explore a forgotten coastal community in rural Norway and unearth the darkness that lies beneath the picturesque surface. Fjord Noir. All right.
It's a cool sound. That's an awesome band name.
Yeah, that is. It sounds like a death metal band.
Yeah, Fjord Noir. That's awesome. Yeah. I love that. Might steal it.
Do it.
Hunt Showdown comes to PS4. Savage, nightmarish monsters roam the Louisiana swamps, and you are part of a group of rugged bounty hunters bound to rid the world of their ghastly presence. Hunt's competitive match-based gameplay mixes PvP and PvE elements to create a uniquely tense experience where your life, your character, and your gear are always on the line.
This game's already on Xbox One. Yeah. It's supposed to be pretty good. Are you going to try this one out?
I had a key for it on PC, and I just forgot that I had it. So I wonder if it still works. Those keys probably expire, right?
I would assume so, but sometimes they don't. So you should just
I might just try it
case by case basis.
Because I remember when they were first showing this game off a while ago, it looked really cool. Like I really enjoyed. I like anything that's asymmetric, but especially when one team is playing like, hunters of some kind, and then the other team just has to play as something that scares the other team. I love that aspect of like competitive like scaring. I don't know. So
yeah, that was what was that Turtle Rock game? Evolve. That was kind of like that.
I mean, Left 4 Dead was also like that. You'd right. I feel like you would position yourself in very specific places in that game, not only to win, but to be the most like unsettling. Like anytime you would get like roped up by some zombies' intestines right when you were before the safe house, it's like, oh shit, what the fuck? Really fun experiences.
I liked Left 4 Dead. That was a fun game.
Great game.
I don't know why they refuse to go back to it. Or are they? Are they building? I don't know what.
I heard that there was like a VR Left 4 Dead thing that's not made by Turtle Rock, so who cares?
Yeah. All right. Oh yeah, and Alex. Half-Life Alex is coming out really soon.
Oh shit! So, yeah, next month.
Yep. Katana Kami comes to PS4. The way of the samurai is forged in battle. Play as a Ronin during Japan's Meiji Restoration. I should know that because I took a fucking class about it. The swordsmith Dojima falls into debt and his beautiful daughter is taken as collateral. Help repay the debt by crafting swords by day and exploring the mysterious twisting dungeons of the Ipponmatsu Cave for valuable materials at night. Ooh, sounds a little bit like, what would it sound? It sounds a little bit like Dark Cloud or something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe not, but yeah.
Nighton comes Nighton Plus, comes to PS4 and Vita. So there's another Vita game for you. Help Sir Loot-a-Lot conquer 4 dungeons by solving intricate puzzles and utilizing new abilities. Join brave Sir Loot-a-Lot on his epic on his epic quest in this little adventure. Okay, is it an epic quest or is it a little adventure?
Yeah.
These are a little confusing.
Can't be both.
Yeah, it can't be both. Explore and fight your way through the 4 dangerous dungeons filled with dangerous traps, devious puzzles, and magical artifacts. I swear this was the same thing written in like different ways.
Yeah, dangerous dungeons filled with dangerous traps. Good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Intricate puzzles, dangerous puzzles, devious puzzles.
Devious puzzles, magical artifacts. Okay. Townsman, A Kingdom Rebuilt comes to PS4. Welcome, Your Highness. A vast land awaits you and is ready to be colonized. Send your architects and builders to plan and construct a city and send your craftsmen to cut wood and mine ore. The crown is yours. Guide your people from their first steps in a small village to a massive medieval metropolis. Sounds neat, but there are tons of other of these building games I need to play first. So
when I was a kid, I used to think Highness was the female version of Hein.
Really? That's
Yeah, I
interesting.
used to think like 'cause you would ever see like Your Highness, and it would always be like some princess or something. I was like, oh, prince
Right.
and princess. I guess
Yeah.
I guess a king is like a hind.
Yeah, well, that's logical.
I can't remember when I realized that was not true at all, but it was definitely way later than it should have been.
You hit your head a few times as a child, but
Yeah, 100%.
It's fine. It's perfectly fine.
Used to play at a park with a lot of broken glass.
Oh, I'm sure who didn't.
Vanquish comes to PS4. I'm
Yay!
ecstatic about this. The hit sci-fi shooter returns. An overpopulated Earth, suffocating under limited resources, looks to Providence, the solar-powered space colony, for support. When Providence is suddenly taken over by a mutinous group and its technology used to devastate cities, it's up to a specially trained unit of space marines to reclaim the colony. Vanquish
Fuck yeah.
is awesome, and you should absolutely play it.
Can't wait. Got to get through this Dragon Quest hell that I'm in. And then Vanquish is all mine. All mine. Can't wait. By the way, the trophy list is identical to the trophy list on PS3, so it's really hard. But I'd like to try to get it because you have to do the challenges in the game. As people might recall, the challenges are really fucking hard.
Yeah.
But we'll see what happens. Fun to play either way. All right, Chris, tradition then dictates that we end our episode with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, if you support us on Patreon, patreon.com/ColinsLastStand, you can not only get early ad-free access to our show and access to Sacred Symbols Plus every week, but we put up a thread on Fridays. You submit those questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas. We go through them as carefully as possible and select what we can. We got a lot of great questions this week. I'm sorry that we can't use them all. As the show becomes more popular, it's just going to become more like this. I'm really trying to like keep a mental tally of whose names I'm using and then try to kind of switch it up so everyone gets a chance.
Yeah.
But we do the best we can. Remember, keep it pithy. If you're writing novels, I'm not even reading them. Just to be honest with you. Just going to keep scrolling. Keep on scrolling, partner. All right. Ross Wynyard wrote into us. Said, hey, Constant, Colin, and Capricious Chris. With Dreams finally out for real and the deafening silence for the latest PlayStation exclusive almost too much to bear, do you think that Sony has bigger plans for it in the future? Is there any chance that they see this as a more accessible version of Unity or Unreal? Maybe not a direct competitor, but with the rumors of a PC release on the horizon, would it not make a perfect entry-level engine for people to make games in? If this is the case, how do you think they would monetize it? Could they release larger Dreams titles outside of the game itself, or simply sell games and experiences inside Dreams in some sort of marketplace? If either of these things were to happen, would they give the creators a cut or keep it all for themselves? Thanks for all that you do, and make Tuesdays great again. Thank you, Ross, for your inquiry. Now, Chris, it's worth saying Dreams is out, finally, Media Molecule's PS4 exclusive, and it is getting excellent reviews. Excellent reviews.
Yeah.
Have you fucked around with it at all in its final form?
Not yet. I've downloaded it. I'm probably going to get to it tonight while I'm editing after I'm done editing the Snark Tank. I think most of the reviews I've seen like make sense to me. I'm left with the same thought though, and I'm just like, this is a very niche thing, man. Like I just don't. I'm happy that it's well received because that's good. They needed that for sure, at the very least. But I don't know what the end game is here. I guess them putting it on PC is pretty obviously an imminent signal that they're going in the direction of maybe opening this up to an even larger player base and opening it up to a community of people more likely to be involved with this kind of stuff, because PC players are typically involved with like messing around with their games anyway, so it makes perfect sense. And I can only imagine what the hell a modded Dreams would look like, but I don't know. I have to play it because there is like a single player campaign that Media Molecule made for it apparently. So I'm looking forward to trying that out at the very least. I get the appeal. I get the appeal of it. I understand because this is part of what Halo is. It's like just finding like ridiculous maps and like, oh, what did this person make? What kind of game mode did this person make? What kind of prefabrication did this person make that I can put into my map? I totally understand it from that standpoint, but I do feel like this is going to be a marketing disaster because I wouldn't know how to market this, which is evident by the fact that you haven't seen any ads for it at all, and I haven't seen any marketing for it aside from it maybe being on the PlayStation Store, maybe, you know?
Yeah, they'll probably market it there. It's also more affordable at $40. If you bought the early access at $30, then you got it for basically $10 off because you can download it for free. I know people think I'm being hard on this game. I don't think I am, though. I just don't. I would love for it to do great. I don't want anyone to fail. But I don't know. It's not only the lack of resonance with the game, even though it's getting great reviews, it's more than that. It's that I don't really know who it's for. What I said to someone, Benji Sales on Twitter, who tweets out a bunch of interesting sales data, I said to him when he tweeted out about the game that no one seems to care about it, I'm like, well, why would you want a game where you make games and download other people's games on a marketplace that sells like 20 games a week? It's not like it's not rarefied air anymore on PlayStation Network. You can release whatever you want. We're releasing a fucking game on PlayStation Network. It's clearly not that difficult to do anymore. And so I think that this game is just too little too late. And I just really do wonder if they can keep it going, because it is certainly more accessible than something like, Ross asked, Unity or Unreal. It's certainly more accessible than those things. It's even more accessible than Game Maker and stuff like that. But I just don't understand what is happening here. Like the things that are circulating is like, I don't know if you saw, like someone's like, I remade Dead Space in Dreams. It's like, cool. You remade a game that already exists in Dreams. Or I think Push Square was one that was saying like, it's a great YouTube kind of like for games where like people are doing stuff. I'm like, this is not good enough, because it's just like a multiplayer game. It's just like we were saying with a game like The Division. You need a vibrant community of people that are not only making the games, but are playing them. And if people are just putting games into the wild just to get trophies or just to no audience, then it's just all going to wither and die. The game's clearly going to come to PC and PS5 and also PSVR. So there are other ways that they're going to be able to monetize this. But to Ross's question, and you'll remember this, Chris, we talked some months ago that Media Molecule was actively trying to find developers to make games in Dreams and we're going to pay for them in order, I think, to have some proof of concept beyond these kind of shitty things that we played. Remember when we did our Dreams Early Access Let's Play back in the day in California? Yeah. So I think that they should make a marketplace for the games and they should monetize them and allow people to make money, even if it's just like you get money put into your wallet. It's like not even like literal money. They just give you money into your wallet. You use it to buy other games on PSN, whatever the case might be. They can't just take all the money if they do something like that.
No, they definitely can't.
But I just don't think, I don't know that Dreams has much of a future. Now, it's anecdotal, but someone did send me on Twitter like a picture of, they count how many people are playing the game at one time, and like the day it came out, it was like 3,000 people or something. I'm like, that's not good. It's just, when a game comes out, like The Last of Us is going to have like hundreds of thousands of people out on it when it comes out, and like the day it comes out. And I know you don't want to compare the two, but 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 is not going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it. So I don't know. I'm wishing them the best, but we'll see what happens. It's going to take time for us to find out. Yeah. The first piece of evidence will be on NPD, and then we'll go from there. Yeah. Dick McFarmhouse. Do you think that's his real name?
Yeah,
Dick
of course. Why would he lie?
Says, hey there, CM Twinsies. So what is going on with this whole PlayStation 5 blowout press conference ordeal? I know it was mostly speculation, but February is almost over, and it doesn't seem like there are any real indicators that this reveal event will be happening imminently, other than the timing in the year. Microsoft waited till May to show off the Xbox One, so for PlayStation this time around, it might be further into the year as well. Maybe they won't do a massive blowout like we expect and do something more low-key like how the Series X was announced. If they do showcase the console in a large presser, do you think it would be wise for Sony to hold out closer to E3 for a reveal, since they are not going to E3 this year? Or is the conference still imminent? What say you? I don't think it's going to happen in February, Chris, but I'm wondering, I don't know if this would piss the ESA off. It might even be illegal to do this if you're an ESA member, but it would be interesting for them to just say, like, we're just going to have a press conference during E3. And since everyone's paying attention during E3, we'll just kind of get that attention anyway, even though we're not there and we're not paying for our space. Now, the reason I say it might be illegal is because you'll remember that Ouya tried this shit and got really fucked over by the ESA whenever they revealed the console in 2012 or whatever. They weren't a member, so that might be different, but they tried to set up shop across the street from E3, as people might recall, and they got like shut down pretty quickly by the ESA. So I don't know if they can do that, but I think it's pretty clear that they might be in a holding pattern, and then I feel like they probably know when they're going to reveal the console, but I would have thought it would have happened by now. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think we're likely probably going to see it around E3. I don't know if they'll even do a press conference so much as they might just do like a direct kind of thing. Maybe not even like the maybe not a state of play necessarily, but they might just have like a big blowout of trailers around or before E3. Is what I think. Because I'm with you where I feel like they would have gone already if they were going to go almost at all. Like, because I can't see them doing it in March because March is such a dense month.
Yeah.
And
that's a problem.
And then April's like a weird month, and then you don't want to go around summer really because it's just kind of like, oh, I don't know. It just feels like a weird. I feel like they missed an opportunity if they're not going in February, because February is so barren of anything.
Yeah, I think you're right. From that perspective, you're totally right, because you don't want to go in like May because The Last of Us 2 comes out then, and I would be mad if I were at Naughty Dog and you were just distracting people from our game.
It's another fucking Concrete Genie situation.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and if you're a third-party partner, like in March, like if you're Tecmo Koei or Koei Tecmo, you release Neo 2 exclusively on PS4, and then they're going to start talking about their next console. It's just like, you don't want to distract anyone. So I agree that there seems to be a moment missed here. Now, I don't know if it was because of the manufacturing problems we just talked about earlier in the show, if they're just specifically not ready to go, if they don't have anything to say yet. I don't really know.
Oh, that must be it.
What the plan is. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. They might not have anything to show because they don't even know if the console will be ready. But the other problem I think about doing a live show is that I don't feel like they have any of their personalities anymore. You know, they've shelved Shuhei Yoshida. They have like a new, Jim Ryan's not really personable. I don't know who you roll out there anymore to like get people excited. Like the Jack Trenton days are like long over.
Yeah.
And so I don't know exactly what the plan is from that perspective either. Like, who's going to be the guy or gal that announces this stuff? They haven't done a good job of managing that. And so I think there are more problems than just one. But as I've said, ad nauseum now, this could happen in any moment. We don't really know. But I agree with Chris. Maybe a really robust, well-produced direct video, something put on YouTube or even a live stream of some sort. But that's something people aren't at, would be something that was pretty cool. Unless the idea was to get journalists and media hands-on immediately, which might be what they're trying to do as well. Because for one thing that you can say is that the PS4 reveal event was interesting only in that it was like an event in New York City. I was there. You just go and you watch this stuff. But then there was really very little else to do. You had a few interview opportunities and that's it. But we didn't go hands-on with the console until E3. So in some way, like fusing the two together makes a lot more sense because then you're going there with intent. Otherwise, there's no reason to be there at all. Now, we're not going to be invited, so I'm not worried about that one way or the other. But
yeah.
But I just feel like maybe the idea is to like, let's get something ready for hands-on and do it all at once. We'll reveal the console. We can have media go hands-on. We can have them write their stories, do the interviews. Just be a little more judicious with their time.
For sure.
Which is not something the media has been, or the marketers at these publishers have been very good at traditionally. So we'll see. Joey Mendoza wrote in and said, hello, Colin and Chris. How do you feel about Untitled Goose Game winning Game of the Year at the DICE Awards?
Good Lord.
Maybe I'm overthinking this, but I want games to be taken seriously as an entertainment medium. If we're going to have award shows showcasing the best games we have to offer, then it should be looked at seriously. Imagine if Avengers Endgame won the Oscar for Best Picture. It's a good movie, but is it the best? I doubt it. I'm not saying Untitled Goose Game isn't a good game, but when you compare it side by side with Sekiro, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Death Stranding, and Control, it's a slap in the face of the hundreds of people working on those excellent games. Thanks for keeping Tuesdays great, and make sure you disinfect those PS5s. We will. Who knows what we're going to get from those fucking PS5s. So I was listen, I didn't play Untitled Goose Game, so it could be excellent. I'm not trying to shit on it, but I couldn't believe that the game won. That was really quite shocking to me.
Yeah, I didn't even know about this. That's wild.
So I actually pulled up, these are now I don't give a shit about these award shows really, to be honest, but
yeah.
The DICE Awards, here are the games that have won. Okay, I'm going to read you the games that have won so you can compare and contrast these games to Entitled Goose Game. So the first DICE Award was in 1997. So 97 was GoldenEye. 98 was Ocarina of Time. 99 was The Sims. 2000 was Diablo 2. 2001 was Halo. 2002 was Battlefield 1942. 2003 was Call of Duty. 2004 was Half-Life 2. 2005 was God of War. 2006 was Gears of War. 2007 was Modern Warfare. 2008 was Little Big Planet. 2009 was Uncharted 2. 2010 was Mass Effect 2. 2011 was Skyrim. 2012 was Journey. 2013 was The Last of Us. 2014 was Dragon Age Inquisition. 2015 is Fallout 4. 2016 Overwatch. 2017 Breath of the Wild. 2018 God of War. 2019 Untitled Goose Game. Something's wrong here.
Yeah,
I mean, no offense to them, but like,
yeah, that is a massive jump.
I don't really understand that either. Now, it could be, I heard the game's great. Again, I haven't played it. I don't want to shit on it.
It's fine. It's fine. It does not. It's not a better game than Sekiro or like Death Stranding or Control or Jedi Fallen Order. Even at the same time, like I don't necessarily think that just because a game like that wins, it means like our medium isn't being taken seriously. I think, in fact, I think it's the fact that standard exists in the film industry is actually just kind of pretentious to me. Like the fact that a comedy can't win Best Picture is just kind of is weird to me. Like I don't get that weird level of like, oh, if something's funny or like in jest, it can't be great. I just feel like that's a really pretentious film oriented mindset, and the fact that something that is a little bit more of a joke won, that in and of itself shouldn't be the problem. The problem is that there's just obviously better games that have come out in 2019.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just feel like now I'm looking at the list and I feel like maybe this started falling apart a little bit, like Dragon Age Inquisition and Fallout 4. I mean, these are weird winners too, but
well, I mean,
this is a really profoundly weird one.
Fallout 4. Wait, what was Fallout 4? 2014, 2015?
2015, yeah.
Oh yeah, that was Witcher, right?
Yeah, Witcher came out that year.
Yeah, there's no excuse for that. But
no, definitely not.
But 2013, I could see there wasn't really much in 2013 at all. Were there? What was 2013?
Well, 2013 was The Last of Us, which is no surprise. 2014 was Dragon Age Inquisition.
2014, right? That's what I mean.
Yeah, so
I don't remember much of anything that came out in 2014.
Yeah, I don't either, to be honest. But off the top of my head, I'd have to really sit here and think about it. But those are all reasonable games to choose. I agree with you. When I saw this, I don't want to shit on it. Like, it looks fun. I want to play it, but it is surprising, and I don't know what it means. Like, I feel like to me, Chris, it means, are people just not taking this are they not taking their voting rights very seriously?
Probably
because not. I don't know. I just don't know how you go from God of War, very great, fantastic game, to Untitled Goose Game. But maybe I'll play it and maybe I'll love it. But that definitely struck me as weird. I just didn't want to say anything on Twitter without context, so I'm glad we got to talk about it here on the show.
Halo, God of War, Uncharted, The Last of Us, Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah.
It's a reasonable pantheon of winners.
One of those things is not like the other, for sure.
Yeah.
It'll be worth noting for the PlayStation fans listening to the show, of which you are all, Sony published 6 of the DICE Award winners, so I think that they're in first place in that regard, which is good.
Look at that.
All right. 3 more questions. Brian Lau wrote in and said, hey, CNC, Jeff Keighley announced on his Twitter account that he will not be participating in this year's E3 Coliseum. This is not the nail in the E3 coffin, as he can be easily replaced with another influencer, but this further adds to the lack of participating in the games industry. It is looking more like E3 is not long for this world after Microsoft and Sony launched their next-gen consoles. I'll just say real quick, Colin was right. A lot of people gave me total shit about this when I've been saying this for the last 3 years, that E3 is definitely dying. Guys, E3 is definitely dying. It's dying. Now, I know Chris has a different perspective on this because he enjoys it. I really don't enjoy it. But what do you make of this? This Jeff Keighley thing was interesting because he's a pretty buttoned up dude. Jeff Keighley's a nice guy. Doesn't really say much about anything to anyone. He's often shit upon for no real reason. But he said this on Twitter and then actually was open to answering questions and was pretty overt in saying, and I'm just kind of summarizing, but he was pretty overt in saying, well, it's not the show that I want to do. It's not the E3 is not the same anymore. And that's all you really needed to hear. It's like when my dad talks shit about someone. It never happens. So when my dad talks shit about someone, that person sucks, right? and when Jeff Keighley comes out and kind of in Jeff Keighley-ese says E3 is kind of shitty now, and I don't even want to be a part of it. I mean, he's making a fortune producing that show. So that to me spoke really loudly. But what did you think about this, Chris, with Jeff Keighley out?
Yeah, I mean, it's looking like it's probably not long for this world. I think this is probably the last one. I think because if more and more people just keep coming out, and I think the increasingly digital future of everything is going to make all this shit pretty irrelevant. I like it as just a week of just kind of like being excited and looking at shit and like seeing some games that think they're cooler than others that aren't, or seeing some games that are unexpectedly really cool. It's just it's like the closest I can come to like a Super Bowl type feeling in this space and in this medium. But I mean, if people keep pulling out, it's like whatever, man. It's fine. To me, Jeff Keighley is a pretty nice dude. I've never really had a problem with that dude. I think I met him once, but I was really drunk, so it's probably not good. But I think ultimately this doesn't really matter that much. But I also do think that he does have an award show that is competing kind of with it now.
It's a good point.
So maybe he just wants to... I feel like he almost wants to make the Game Awards his, like, the new E3. Or as close as it could be while being an award show.
It's a great point. Yeah, he definitely has a ulterior motive to downplay E3. But that was the thing, is that he could have... The Game Awards isn't new, and he could have been doing this for years. So I think that there's...
Yeah, for sure.
More to it than that. But that's probably an ulterior motive as the Game Awards becomes bigger and bigger. I think that more people watch the Game Awards than watch the Oscars, which is incredible. And now there's streaming options, and who knows how these numbers are counted. But that it's even in the same ballpark as something that prestigious is pretty cool. And he seemed... I was always making... I used to make fun of the Game Awards, and I don't like traditional game awards or award shows for gaming. I just feel like we should treat ourselves a little differently, but I know I'm on the losing end of that battle. And when we treat ourselves differently, then fucking Untitled Goose Game wins the DICE Award for Game of the Year. So I guess I should be careful what I ask for. But yeah, it is true that he has an ulterior motive, and that's worth noting. I agree with you. I don't know that it's the biggest deal. I just think that, and I don't think the show's going to go anywhere. I just think they want the show to be like Gamescom. And Gamescom is a big deal in Europe, and I don't know that we need another one. I guess if you want it to be like Gamescom, then you need one in the United States for people to go to, but just understand then that the complexion of what E3 is and means is going to change, because Gamescom has always been what it is. E3 has not always been what it is, and that's what I've been trying to explain to people. A lot of people have been writing me off and calling me an asshole and an idiot for saying this for a few years, but I've been in this industry a long time, and I've been to a lot of E3s, and I am telling you, the show has been changing long before all of this shit happened.
Oh, yeah.
Long before Sony pulled out, long before Jeff Keighley pulled out, it was changing, and it was obvious to anyone that has been there. And so, I don't want to dunk on everyone, but I'm going to, and I'm going to do it hard. I'm going to do it real hard.
Yeah.
But E3 as a name and a game show will exist. It's just going to become a consumer show, and we're going to see how much you like it in June, when you get a little first taste of the influencer-driven, marketing-driven, loud and obnoxious shit that is undoubtedly going to emanate from the LA Convention Center in downtown Los Angeles.
I just like the conferences, man. I wish... It's sad that we're probably just going to lose those, because they're just fun to watch. Because like so often, like you'll get like that Yarny guy.
Oh yeah,
or
that
Mr.
guy.
Caffeine and like all this.
Oh yeah,
there's so much. People really underestimate the entertainment value of E3, not only from just like a kind of like cringy aspect, but also from like a genuine like, oh, did you see that? That was fucking cool. And I feel like that kind of thing is just going away in the same way that a lot of our nostalgic kind of imperatives are going away. Like we don't have physical media anymore. We don't have game manuals. We don't get the new game smell. There's no hard fucking console exclusives anymore now that even when a new machine launches. Like I feel like everything is just becoming very, very mundane. And it's really sad that the one blowout we had is just sort of just going away too.
Yeah, I feel you. You're right. Yeah, there's something sad about it from that perspective, because it's like one of the last bastions of the way it used to be. No doubt.
For sure.
No doubt about it. But we're going to see what happens, and maybe the new show turns out better. As far as the press conferences are concerned, there's nothing stopping the big guns from collaborating with each other to do their own thing, to have like a week of press conferences or something. It would be cool for them to do something like that, where you don't really need the E3 component.
Yeah.
If you just have, because what you're saying is true. When people think about E3, they think about the press conferences, but the press conferences start before E3 even begins. They're two different things, really.
Yeah.
And so why can't you have what people really care about? It's almost like the end of the football game goes first. It's like the fourth quarter of the Super Bowl is first, and then you watch the first three quarters, even though you know how it ends.
Yeah.
And so that, to me, that always was kind of it was always a little bit of it was like retrograde. It didn't really make any sense at all.
Yeah, I never tuned in for anything after the conferences.
Yeah, me neither. It only mattered because they were revealing games that would be playable behind closed doors and not on the show floor, but I don't give a shit about that. Like, so just... We'll see. Let's not even judge it anymore. We'll see. But I agree. Jeff Keighley, is he the canary in the coal mine? I don't know. We'll find out. Connor Peterman, the bastard son of Jay Peterman, wrote in and said, hello, Cumulonimbus, Colin. Is that a kind of cloud, I guess?
Yeah.
And Coniferous Chris. Although it's undeniably a good thing that developers can turn around complete disasters, should we be characterizing them as redemption arcs? If I'm paying $60 for a product, I expect that product to work day one. The way we currently talk about massive turnarounds is misguided. I'm worried that if we continue to act like cheerleaders for this type of behavior, then it will become a normal part of game releases. I don't believe that expecting a working game is asking a lot out of studios from whom we expect good things. This is a good question, Connor. Thank you, and say hello to your father.
Yeah. You know J. Peterman, the actor who played J. Peterman, was in that the Christian Mingle movie?
No, I didn't know that. What was his name?
Oh my God.
I can't remember. Because he hosted, didn't he host Family Feud for a while? I'm going to look it up real quick.
I think so. His name was John O'Hurley?
Yeah, John O'Hurley. That's right.
Yeah.
John O'Hurley. Yep, correct.
Look at that.
Okay. Well, we made the dream work with the teamwork here. Okay. So, Chris, what do you think about this redemption arc idea with Connor? I kind of agree with him. It is a nice feel-good story when someone like Hello Games turns their game around, or something like Siege finds its audience later on. But it does kind of suck that it comes at the sake of the early adopter and the person who spends the most amount of money. So, what do you think about what Mr. Peterman says here?
I mean, I don't think it should be necessarily cheerleaded. I think the context matters. I think when a studio like Hello Games puts out a game and it's bad, and then they're able to turn around and make it great, even though they're a small team, I think that's something that should be praised, because that's not really, I don't know, there's something a little bit more inherently feel good when it's an indie studio. But like when you're talking about Anthem, when you're talking about BioWare and EA, like I don't think, even if the new Anthem, like they're talking about, is great, I don't think people are going to be looking at it as a redemption arc. They're going to be looking at it and being like, well, they really fucked that up, huh? Like, I just think it matters. I think the context of who you're talking about and the studios that you're talking about and the type of game that you're talking about does matter a great deal. And I don't know what you would call it aside from a redemption arc. If anything, that's like what a redemption arc is. Like, if something's fucked in the beginning and then gets better, that's literally, like, what would you call that?
Yeah, I guess what he's saying is that it's just the idea of the redemption arc has a positive connotation,
right?
Which I understand. And I understand what he's saying here. See, the way I look at it, Chris, is, and to Connor's point, I think the beneficiaries of this ecosystem, unfortunately, are not the gamers, but the publishers and developers that put a game out that works.
Yeah.
So if you have this idea that the well is poisoned because all these games don't work, then kind of everyone loses, because then you're skeptical. We've all done that. I've waited to play games I've wanted to wait, 'cause I'm like, I'm sure this is broken. And lo and behold, it is. It is broken. I mean, Death Stranding is even getting updates now that are like making the game much more playable, but we already fucking beat it. And it kind of sucks because we paid full price for it and gave it attention when it really mattered the most and all that. So I understand what he's saying, but I agree with you, Chris, that there's nothing really negative about having the redemption arc. It's a matter of if you're willing to reward the publisher and or developer for that redemption arc, or if you're willing to say, I want to put my money with the people that make the game that works right off the bat. And it used to be rare or almost non-existent for games to work immediately in the patch era, especially multiplayer games. But it seems like the pendulum's kind of swinging, where games that you expect to not work actually do, and they work really reliably. And so that's where you want to put your money. But unfortunately, to his point, it's too late by the time the redemption arc happens if you've already paid for the game. If you bought No Man's Sky, then you already fucked out of your money anyway. So then the redemption arc just becomes this thing that it's like, well, do you want your money's worth now? Because you certainly didn't get it then. So it does suck. It's unfortunate. The point is, games should just work. I do not think it's too much. He says, I don't believe that expecting a working game is asking a lot out of studios from whom we expect good things. I agree. A game should work. You can tweak it and modify it and all that kind of stuff with patches, but it should work fundamentally well.
I mean, they used to work pretty reliably for years, decades.
Yeah, because they had to. You couldn't ship a game that was broken. If it was broken, it was broken. And that was disastrous. That's why people remember games were delayed all the time back in the day. And sometimes they were delayed like a few weeks just because you understood that they found something that was broken when they were manufacturing the disc or something like that. Wasn't it? I think it was Max Payne. We were talking about Remedy earlier. I could be wrong. But wasn't there a thing? No, it was Hitman, where in the original Hitman, there was a weapon with a description it was like something like it was like a gun or something, and then the description said like, Jeff, fill this in later or something like that. And they left it in there, and so that's in every one of their games as an Easter egg now, which is cool because they obviously couldn't patch that out during the time. So things still slip through.
I like that.
Yeah, me too. I think that there was a run of Metal Gear NES cartridges that also were missing a key card, if I recall. But I don't know. I don't remember. All right. Crispy Bacon has the final comment. He says, "Look fat. Thank you for opening. Thank you for opening with that. I appreciate that." The little Joe Biden reference. "Look fat. Nearly every episode you and Chris talk about your anticipation for The Last of Us Part 2. I got to be fair. I talk about it. Chris doesn't really talk about it. I feel kind of left out because I have never played the first Last of Us, with many people calling The Last of Us their game of the decade and even the greatest game of all time. I finally decided to pick up a copy of Last of Us Remastered on PS4 to see what all the fuss is about. I'm about 2 hours in and literally fell asleep while playing this game because I was so bored with it. Is there a point where the game gets really exciting? Do I just have to slog through boring gameplay to get to the story? I never heard a bad thing from anyone about this game, so I am really confused it didn't grab my attention immediately. Starting to think it's a conspiracy and everyone is just a lying, dog-faced pony soldier." Man, you really have it out for Joe Biden, don't you?
Yeah, I love that that insult.
Oh, it's awesome. He says it was from like a John Wayne movie or something, which I'm not familiar with. My favorite Bidenism is definitely "look fat." Like that was definitely what he said. People should go look that up. Basically, Joe Biden was like at in New Hampshire or Iowa at some sort of town hall, and some guy was giving him grief, and I think the guy was like heavy set, and he literally started calling him fat.
Yeah,
but like
look
held
fat.
Back at the last. He's like, "Look fat," and then like kind of just kept going.
I love it.
Who the hell knew what he was about to say? But it's fucking awesome. Chris, I wanted to bring this up just because I feel like people need to understand something. Not everything is going to be for you, even the stuff that is near universally loved. Lots of people don't like The Last of Us, by the way.
Yeah.
If you listen to Sacred Symbols Plus last week, you'll know that not everyone loves The Last of Us. And people certainly take issue with my constant praise of the game. But I feel like folks just got to wrap your minds around the fact that like there's no such thing as pure universal love for anything. Not only because you want to be a hipster and you want to be different, but because sometimes things that are great or considered like objectively great, you just simply don't agree with. Yeah. I just talked earlier in the show about how I saw Parasite and I can't imagine how this I liked it, but I can't imagine how the movie won Movie of the Year or the Academy Award for the best movie of the year. So what do you make of this? He doesn't like The Last of Us. He fell asleep during the first 2 hours. I know you struggle with this game a lot more than I do, Chris. So I feel like your feedback will be a little more resonant with Crispy Bacon.
Yeah, I think I get it. It is. I think the game holds up pretty well, but especially if you're experiencing it for the first time, yeah, I think there are games that have come out since that kind of maybe feel a little bit more grounded. I think God of War actually is a pretty huge improvement narratively over The Last of Us, just because The Last of Us, I would agree, has a very... I would say that even if you like The Last of Us, and even if you really, really love The Last of Us, you could say that the story itself is pretty... Like, the overall plot is pretty by the books. And what really makes that game stick out is the character interactions and the acting and the performance and the tension when you're, like, stealthing around trying to not get eaten. But I don't know, like, if you don't like it, that's fine. Like, there's no law that says you have to like The Last of Us. I'm not in love with it. I like it. I think it's a totally fine game. I'd probably, if I was putting it in a top 10 list, I'd probably put it around like 5 or 6. It's a really good game. It is. But just because something is the flagship of a console that you primarily use doesn't mean you're going to automatically love it. Dreams is exclusive to PlayStation 4, and God, good Lord.
Yeah, we don't care about that game at all. I mean, Gran Turismo and other games. I mean,
Gran Turismo. I couldn't give a shit about Forza or like or any of those things. I want my Burnout back, but not everybody. But evidently, not everybody wants Burnout back. So I guess no. Fuck me.
Yeah, fuck you, Chris.
So I don't know. I think it really just comes down to preference, man. Like, you don't have to force yourself to slog through it if it's really not grabbing you. But I would say that a lot of times when something's not grabbing you, especially in a game, oftentimes it does have a lot to do with where you're at. Like, be it like emotionally or just like what's on your mind. Like, because The Witcher 3 I went back to like 5 times and I hated every single time until the 6th time I played it. And then I really loved it. So I would say, like, if you see some spark of enjoyment there, even if it's just slight, there's a good chance to get a lot of value out of that spark. And I would maybe not write it off completely, and maybe come back to it when you're in a different headspace, or maybe you've got more time, maybe you're not as stressed out, or maybe you are more stressed out and you need something to do to relax or get your mind off of shit. I think giving things second chances is pretty key, because there's a lot of shit that I really regret not playing on day one. Hellblade, like we were talking about in the beginning of this episode, I saw gameplay of Hellblade initially and I thought this looks really generic and shit, and I'm playing it over the weekend, over this last week, and it's one of the most engrossing games I've played this generation. So just keep that in mind.
Very well said. Very well said. Just for me, if you're not grabbed by the first 20 minutes of The Last of Us, nonetheless the first 2 hours, then you're probably not going to like it. So now, does the gameplay open up? Yeah, the gameplay gets there. I don't even want to talk. It came out 7 years ago, but I still don't want to spoil it for people. The game, there are some really key combat parts of the game that are awesome. I guess saying like the hotel is one of them, or the apartment building is one of them. That's in the demo, so I guess that's not really a spoiler. Yeah. The first 2 hours doesn't have like the most dynamic combat, but if you're not really if the game's putting you to sleep in the first 2 hours, then it's not for you. Yeah. There's just no way that I can imagine someone liking or loving The Last of Us and not being riveted by the beginning, but being riveted by something that happened later. That's definitely not going to happen. Yeah. So, yeah, but like Chris said, maybe put it down and try it again later. Maybe you're just not in the right headspace, but it's just also entirely possible The Last of Us is not for you. We can't all have good taste, right? So you're just one of those people, Crispy Bacon. Thank you. Fat. Appreciate you. All right. That's it, Chris. That's all we have for this episode of Sacred Symbols.
Alrighty.
A PlayStation podcast. Thank you so much out there for everyone's support and love on Patreon. And remember to also leave us nice reviews on free feeds if you listen to us there. If you're a scallywag and a rabble-rouser and a freeloader.
Yeah, or if you're a lying dog-faced pony soldier.
Yes. Or you are that. I still can't believe he called that girl a dog-faced pony soldier. Oh my God. Joe Biden's losing his fucking mind. Yeah, thank you so much for leaving us nice reviews, buying merch, and obviously supporting us on Patreon. Twin Breaker.
Yeah.
A Sacred Symbols adventure, March 24th, PS4 and Vita. We'll keep talking about it and keep reminding you. Yeah. You should all buy it.
4 days after Doom and Animal Crossing. So if you play those and you're sick of it, and you're sick of those games, you're absolutely fucking bored out of your mind by those games, give Twin Breaker a look.
Yeah, please do. And we'll have much more on that soon. We're going to be doing a Reddit AMA on the PlayStation Reddit, the official PlayStation Reddit, or I guess it's not official, but whatever, the r/PS4 or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so Barry and I will be on there to talk about the game. We're going to work on merch. We're going to work on getting you that information about the physical releases, etc., and so on. So much more to talk about. Just about a month away, a little more than that. So very exciting for us. And we're glad so many of you are excited too. We're blown away by your responses. So thank you for that. Chris, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you.
Of course.
And we'll see you all next time for more Sacred Symbols. Goodbye.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product of and a registered trademark of Colin's Last Stand, LLC, and is recorded from Richmond, Virginia, and Burbank, California, USA. This show is conceived by, is written by, and is produced by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-host is Chris Raygun. You can find me on Twitter at NoTaxation and on Instagram at CLS Moriarty. Chris is on Twitter at Chris R. Gunn and on Instagram at Chris_Ray_Gun. Sacred Symbols is edited by Dustin Furman. To message the show online, please use Patreon's DM service. As you know, all of Colin's Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/Colin's Last Stand. The following names are at the producer level or higher on Patreon, and we are eternally grateful for your kindness, generosity, and fandom. Chris Adams, Carlos Algarit, Morgan Ashley, Saul Balcazar, Taylor Barkley, Martin Beck, Tyler Bello, Mark Boggio, Barrett Boswell, Spencer Brand, Lennon Brixey, Josh Bushing, Austin Bullock, Dylan Burns, Chris Buston, Alex Cabrera, Patrick Harper, William O'Carroll, Brian Chan, Sean Chandler, David Chestnut, Rodney Coleman, Simon Conception, Brad Cooley, John Cordero, Gio Corsi, Philip Crone, Daniel Diamore, Colin Davenport, Knight Draft, David Ellis, Jerome Ferreira, Joe Finelli, Eric Finkenbeiner, Chris Galvin, Darren Gardner, Connor Gashian, Alex Gates, Michael Gates, Salem Ghanem Al Ghanem, Tyler Goodwin, Josh Gravelick, Miranda Grubba, Jonathan H., Eric Harden, Tyler Harris, Richard Hebert III, Kyle Hagel, Wyatt Henry, Robbie Hensley, Scott Hernandez, Blake Israel, Azan Isa Al Ricey, Josh Yeager, Joshua Jonathan, Paul Joyce, Greg Juliffs, Anton K., Patrick Kelly, Jeremy Key, Antti Kinnunen, James Kinslow III, Ryan R. Kittredge, Bo Clant, Mike Naffo, Mason Cadillac, Jackson Lastiqua, Don Q. Lee, Patrick Leslie, Keith A. Lewis, Chad Lewis, Lou and Ray Loper, Colin Love, Scott Lovelace, Josh M., Kiet Mai, Ryan T. Mandel, Ross Maranka, Matt Martin, Sean Mason, John McCarthy, Josh McKinney, Joe McPartlin, Raul Melendez, Chris Moore, Betty Ann Moriarty, Ryan Murdoch, Stephen Nieder, Adam Nick, Donnie Nolan, Dan Nolan, George A. Nunez, Jesse Owen, Jorge Palomino, Andrew Parker, Zach Parsley, Daniel Parsons, Todd Paxton, Marius S. Peterson, Gerald Pennington, Matthew Perdue, Enrique Perez, Jason Pettit, Travis Plimal, Jeff Pollard, Lawrence F. Prokop, Nathan R., Ryan Reeves, Peter Reynolds, Shane Rayum, Jonathan Rice, Daniel Rivas, Petro Rose, A.G. Rowe, Jose Salinas, John Schultz, Michael Shanholz, Toby Shootman, Gregory Slavinsky, Joshua Smallwood, Ahmad Tamar, Ben Thompson, Carl Tolman, Alan Tremblay, Michael Vecchio, Oakley Waldron, Justin Wagaman, Isaac Wastman, Damon Weathers, Mike Wayne, David Wright, Corey Wyatt, Tony Zaniga, Bloody Fang, Galja, Casual Misfits Gaming, Homeworld Hub, Throw7, McDog18, Infinite, Boots, Organic Produce, Mad Mock Media, Lockmort, Not Your Real Dad, Mubarak, Richter86, Hugo's Desk, Of Fortuna, Andrew, Ian, Dav9834, Gamer Filmaholic, Megadet, and Rainick.